It was only after I died that I learned what my mother truly was, a sanctimonious hypocrite. She clung to fame as the most admirable rural woman, stepping over the bones of our entire family. When I opened my eyes again, I was 18 years old once more. There she was, my gentle, kind-hearted birth mother, earnestly pleading with me. Donating a kidney to him would at least let you live with a clear conscience. 1. You're both O-type, so there's a good chance you'd be a match. Donating a kidney to him would let you rest easy, knowing you did the right thing. At the dinner table, my mother, for once, served me a second bowl of rice, even though there were only a few sparse grains of rice in the bowl. In my past life, I was still deeply moved and hastily agreed to her request for me to donate a kidney to Uncle Silas. I was born into an ordinary family. My father worked diligently, and my grandmother toiled non-stop in the fields, yet our family remained desperately poor. So poor, in fact, that I had never eaten a full meal by the time I turned 18, all because I have a soft-hearted mother. According to her, there are so many poor people out there for whom a simple bowl of rice porridge is the greatest happiness. Chloe, I know you're kind-hearted, just like me. After you donate the kidney, I'll slaughter the chicken at home to make you a nourishing soup. She gave me a piece of pickled vegetable as if it were a reward, and just like that, I was talked into getting tested as a match for our village neighbor, Uncle Silas. On my 18th birthday, I was wheeled into the operating room and had a kidney removed. Mom, you're type O2. Why didn't you do it? The question caught her off guard. Mom is getting on in years and isn't in good health. You're still young. Donating a kidney won't really affect you. Once the surgery is over, I promise I'll take good care of you. I was raised by my grandmother. My soft-hearted mother has always been more devoted to her charitable causes than to her family. She doesn't even remember how old I am this year. For someone who's grown up starved of a mother's love, her promise of companionship was the most tempting offer imaginable. In my past life, I pinned my hopes on that very promise. I went ahead and donated a kidney, ignoring my brother's attempts to stop me. After the surgery, she devoted herself to meticulously caring for the patient in the bed next to mine, all while scolding me for putting on an act over what she called a minor procedure. Just 7 days after I was discharged, she dragged me on a 2-mile walk to visit Uncle Silas, who'd also received a kidney transplant. The strain caused my surgical wound to rupture, and I was rushed back into the operating room, hearing this for the second time. I put down my bowl with a smile. Mom, you're wrong about that. Just last time, I saw you pushing Aunt Wu's cart for her, 5 miles in one go. How could my skinny little arms and legs ever compare to yours? Besides, Uncle Silas has been so good to you. If you don't donate a kidney, wouldn't you practically be harming him? I left her speechless, and she looked at Dad with a pleading gaze. I blocked her line of sight, held her hand tightly, and recounted all the good things Uncle Silas had done for her. Mom, it's settled then. I'm going to tell Uncle Silas and Auntie Sun the good news right now. Before she could say another word, I dashed off to Uncle Silas's house. She had a romance with Uncle Silas when she was young, but due to her family's opposition, she could only watch, heartbroken, as he married Auntie Sun. Recently, she learned that Uncle Silas has been diagnosed with uremia. My mother couldn't bear to see him suffer. Not only did she send him nutritional supplements every day, but she also sought out every possible treatment. When she heard a kidney transplant could save him, she started pleading and pressuring me daily to get tested for a match. Auntie Sun suddenly understood. That explains it, she said. Your mother mentioned last time that Uncle Silas might have a chance, but if it's a match, would she really be able to donate? Auntie Sun, you know how my mother is. If you tried to stop her from donating, she'd make a scene and threaten to do something drastic. Auntie Sun nodded thoughtfully. I figured she must have remembered that time my mother forced the issue by threatening her own life, just to give our family house to that no-good loafer who couldn't find a wife. I hadn't gone far when I could still hear Auntie Sun saying the village idiot was going to donate a kidney to her husband, so that was my mother's nickname in the village. The next day, I dragged my mother along to visit Uncle Silas. Elaine, you're an absolute saint. When old Sun gets better, the two of us will get down on our knees and kowtow to you. Auntie Sun and I simply pushed the still-dazed her right onto the tractor, watching them drive away. I finally let out a sigh of relief. My brother walked over curiously and circled me a few times. How did you get so smart? Keep it up. He patted my shoulder and walked away with a smile. At that moment, my brother was handsome, tall, and full of cheerful vitality. He was a world apart from the broken, pitiable man he would become a decade later. That summer, to pay for my university tuition, he went to work in an illegal coal mine. A collapse there crushed his leg. It was a legal operation to begin with, so the boss offered to pay for my brother's surgery. Little did we know, my mother found out. She rushed to the illegal coal mine and shouted at the injured workers' families. The boss is struggling to keep his business afloat. Please, don't demand compensation. Then, she took the boss's wife's hand and said, we won't take this money. We're not trying to extort you. Later, she signed a liability waiver on her brother's behalf. She gave all the family's money to the injured workers, leaving none for her brother's leg, and his treatment was delayed. What are you daydreaming about? Hurry up and take this meal to Grandma. My brother handed me the packed lunchbox, which contained a secretly boiled egg. Even though I was the one who fed the chickens, my mother would always find some excuse to give the eggs to the elderly, weak, sick, or disabled folks in the village. If I wanted Grandma to have one, I had to do it behind my mother's back. Our family's plot was at the foot of the mountain, far from home, when the land was being divided. My mother was the first to step up and claim the worst pieces. My husband is capable, so I won't fight with everyone over the good land. Like a hero, she took on the plots the whole village despised, full of stones where crops could hardly grow. When Grandma found out, she was so upset she cried for 2 days, but there was nothing she could do about it. Grandma, come and eat. I set the food down under the tree, took the hoe from her hands, and started weeding. Don't you push yourself, little one. Go sit down. Used to farm work. Grandma was quite strong. She pulled me over and sat me down under the tree. She's only 60, in good health, and her hair hasn't even turned gray yet. I opened the lunchbox for her. Oh, there's an egg too. I never liked these. Here, you take it. She's still the same, tough on the outside but soft on the inside. I used to be a little afraid of her. Mom said Grandma favored boys over girls. She never liked me from the moment I was born, which is why I grew up so skinny and small. I only found out later that Grandma raised me on rice broth for the first year of my life. Mom never breastfed me once because my aunt couldn't produce milk, so she saved hers for my cousin. How could anyone not like eggs? I quickly peeled one and popped it into her mouth. The sun was blazing. Her face was dark and gaunt. When I held her hand, I could feel nothing but bone. Once I get into university, I'll buy you some meat to eat, Grandma. That's my girl. Grandma patted my head affectionately. I always thought she didn't like me and kept my distance, but that year after my kidney surgery, she was the one who took care of me through everything, never once showing any disgust. Even with the most unpleasant tasks, I threw myself into her arms and made a silent vow. I will make sure my grandmother lives a good life for the rest of her days. For Auntie Sun came back with my mother, beaming from ear to ear. It's a match. It's a match. Old Son is saved, but my mother's expression clearly wasn't very happy when she saw me. It was as if she'd spotted a lifeline. Why don't you go get tested too? Chloe, you might be an even better match. I let out a cold laugh. Just yesterday she was acting all high and mighty, saying that refusing to donate was like being a murderer, but now that it's her turn, she's terrified. I'm seriously starting to wonder if she's even my real mother. I shook her hand off. Mom, what are you talking about? A compatibility test is so expensive. Auntie Sun's family needs to save every penny for the actual surgery. A single compatibility test costs $8,000, and the follow-up transplant surgery is around $400,000. Uncle Silas's family isn't exactly rolling in money, so of course they need to save where they can. Auntie Sun put down the nutritional supplements she was holding, urged my mom to take good care of herself, and then went home overjoyed to report the good news. When my dad came home from work, my mom rushed up to him with tears in her eyes. Dawson, it's my fault for not raising Chloe properly. She's become so heartless. Brother Gui has been so good to our family, and she still refuses to get tested for a match. My dad was completely against anyone in the family donating a kidney. If Chloe won't donate, then you shouldn't either. How can you say that? If Chloe doesn't donate, Brother Gui is done for. My dad naturally felt for me, but he always remembered the debt of gratitude he owed my mom for saving him in the fields all those years ago, so he didn't dare criticize her too harshly. Mom, how am I being heartless? I'm over the moon that you can save Uncle Silas. Besides, it's not like Uncle Silas has been good to our family. He's been good to you. Don't you forget, last time you sprained your ankle, it was Uncle Silas who carried you all the way home from the edge of the village. A lot of people saw it. You can't be ungrateful, Mom. The story had spread all over the village, but my father was completely unaware. Is what Chloe said true? My father was so shocked he dropped his shovel. Dawson, listen to me. It's not what you think. My mother bit her lip and shook her head repeatedly, insisting over and over that she and Uncle Silas were innocent, but she just wouldn't offer any real explanation. I'd seen this exact scene play out countless times when I was a kid. It always ended the same way, with my mother's the innocent have nothing to fear attitude, and the whole thing would just fizzle out. I could see it clearly now. My father was completely under her thumb. They'd make up in no time. Anyway, news travels fast in a small village. The very next day, quite a few people came to my house to ask about it. 5. Chloe, is it true your mother is going to donate a kidney to Silas? I was washing up in the courtyard early in the morning when Granny Lou from next door leaned over the wall and called out to me. Granny Lou, you know how upset my mother has been since Uncle Silas fell ill. Now that there's a chance to save him, she's over the moon. Just then, my mother came out. I nudged her toward Granny Lou and said, Mom also said that if she didn't donate this kidney, she'd carry the guilt for the rest of her life. Old Mrs. Lou looked her up and down, pursing her lips. Elaine is certainly good to Silas. I don't see you being that devoted to your own husband. My mother was probably still lost in her worries about the kidney donation, unable to utter a word. What a lively day it's been. Relatives I haven't seen in ages all showed up. Whenever anyone asks, I sing praises of my mother's selfless devotion and her genuine affection for Uncle Silas. By the end of the day, the news had spread far and wide. Some people even brought journalists along to interview us. That's right, my mom is just that kind of a saint. She gave away every penny my dad earned and all the grain my grandma grew to the poor folks outside. Yeah, she even gave away the house we lived in. My mom said Uncle Gus in the village couldn't get a wife without a home. My mom was over the moon that she could donate a kidney to Uncle Silas. She was so happy she cried herself to sleep every night. I stepped in front of my mom and spilled all our family business to the cameras. By the end, the reporter was looking at her differently. Has your mother always been like this? The reporter hesitated, words left unspoken. Of course, my mom can't sleep at night unless she's done a good deed. Don't you dare try to stop her. Everyone in the village wanted to be on TV, crowding around the camera and all talking at once about what an absolute saint my mother was, flattered out of her mind. My mom finally relented and agreed to make the donation, seeing the look on her face, like she was heading off to war, gave me immense satisfaction. In my past life, she used emotional blackmail on me just like this. She knelt before me at the village entrance in front of everyone, saying that if I didn't donate, I'd have a life on my conscience. No, in this life, it's her turn. Oh, my own mother, once you've finished donating, I'll make sure to take good care of you. 6. Grandma made noodles for dinner. The hand-pulled noodles were so delightfully chewy and fragrant. I devoured 3 bowls in one go. Looking back, I was such a fool. I've starved myself all these years, just for a few words of praise from her. My mother had no appetite. Holding her bowl and only taking a bite after a long while, I fished out a few pieces of the awful pickles for her. Mom, have some pickles to nourish yourself. I gave all the nutritional supplements Auntie Sun gave us to the lonely elderly folks in the village. Someone as kind-hearted as you would never have the heart to keep them for yourself. She was stunned, the chopsticks slipping from her hand. Chloe, how could you treat your own mother like this? Mom, you have the kindest heart. You can't stand to see others suffer. Besides, I learned this from you. Don't you remember the year my brother had his appendectomy? You gave away practically everything in the house. You're still young. You don't need those supplements. There are plenty of people out there who can't even get a proper meal. You need to be more charitable. I remember what you said back then, every word of it. My brother was only 12 that year. He had appendicitis and was writhing in pain on the bed. My mother had already given away all the family's money and couldn't afford to take him to the hospital. She found some folk remedy from who knows where, mixing rotten leaves from the mountain with soot from the bottom of a pot, and was about to make him drink it. By then, I had started school and knew how dangerous these home remedies could be. I helped my brother to the fields to find our grandmother. That's how he managed to pull through. On the day I was discharged from the hospital, my grandmother sold some of our family's scarce grain to buy my brother plenty of good food, but by the next day, all the food was gone. You're still young. It was just a minor surgery. You don't need any special nourishment. That's exactly what my mother said, standing right by my brother's bedside. She gave everything away to her frail uncle and pitiable cousin, completely disregarding her own brother's poor health. 7. My home only has 3 rooms, 2 bedrooms, and a main hall. My brother, grandmother, and I all lived in one room, separated by a cloth partition. Grandma smoothed out the bedding and pulled me close to her. She is still your mother, after all, but I'd rather have no mother at all. She would only suck me dry of my last drop of blood. I tilted my head back to keep the tears from falling. If she won't donate, then it has to be me. Grandma, I'm only 18. I haven't even gone to university yet. I haven't had the chance to properly take care of you. In the dim light, Grandma's wrinkles became even more pronounced. She had aged, and years of heavy labor had bent her back. I knew she was kinder than anyone. Otherwise, my mother wouldn't have had such a good life. Ever since my mother married into the family, Grandma never let her work in the fields. Heartbroken that Mom had never known an easy life growing up, Grandma only had her do laundry and cooking at home. But later, as my brother grew up, all these chores became his responsibility. Then, after I was born, she never had to lift a finger for any household task again. All she had to do was tidy herself up and go out to do good deeds. It wasn't that Grandma hadn't tried to change her, but it was useless. She would kneel at our front gate, begging Grandma to be kind and not stop her from helping those poor souls. Through her own efforts, Grandma became known in the village as a miserly old woman. I lay with my head in Grandma's lap as she gently stroked my hair. I broke down and sobbed. I desperately wanted to tell Grandma how, before my rebirth, not a single day went by that I didn't miss her, and how much I hated myself for blindly obeying my mother, hurting both myself and breaking her heart. Thank goodness, I have another chance. The college entrance exam scores will be released in a few days. This time, it's mine, and no one can take it away. 8. When I woke up, the sky was already bright. It was the best sleep I'd had in over a decade. No alarm clock. No rude awakening from my mother's sudden visit. In my past life, my greatest fear was that no matter where I hid, she would always find me. With righteous fervor, she'd lecture me that making money shouldn't be just for myself. I should think of the homeless on the streets, the people who couldn't afford a meal. Every time my mother shows up, she brings a whole crowd with her, under the guise of charity. They clean out my entire savings. With only one kidney, I'm no match for those young, strong people. In the end, I can only lie on the floor, crying helplessly. Chloe, you can always earn more money. They're just poor souls. Just because I work hard, I'm expected to support people who can't even be bothered to look for a job. I even tried calling the police, but since my mother brought them here, it's considered a family dispute. Of course, they can't just throw my own mother in jail. That kind of life didn't end until my previous life was over. Looking at my mother's resentful gaze, I happily devoured 2 bowls of rice, while she was too worried to eat, and naturally had no mind to count how many bowls I had. Thanks again to Granny Lou's vigorous promotion and bringing in reporters for support, my mother's kidney donation was set in stone, with no room for turning back. A classmate told me there's a company in town hiring, and the pay is pretty good. At the dinner table, my brother spoke up suddenly. "You're not going." I got a bit worked up, my voice rising a notch. It was this company that sent my brother to work in that illegal coal mine. A job that pays that well has to be risky. "Brother, please don't go." My brother smiled and patted his own shoulder. "Don't worry, I'm strong enough to handle it. You're doing so well in school. Once I've saved up enough money, I'll send you to university." I shook my head. "I'll figure out the tuition myself." "You're not going, and that's final, this time." I'd rather not go to college than let him get hurt again. It wasn't just me trying to stop him. Grandma was also afraid it would be dangerous. "I still have some savings. Grandma will pay for Chloe's college. Let Gunzi go. Renee has college to think about." 2-9. My mother suddenly stood up, her face full of disapproval. My grandma slammed her chopsticks down. "If she wants an education, let her father pay for it. Gunzi, go tell your uncle about that company. How can that be okay? What if there's danger and his uncle gets hurt?" My mother instantly grew anxious. "You're worried about his uncle, but you don't care about Gunzi. You're not afraid he'll get hurt if he goes." Under Grandma's icy stare, my mother continued to argue in a low voice. "Gunzi is young and strong. He'll be fine, but his uncle has been frail since childhood. How could he possibly endure such hardship?" If my mother's kindness towards others could still be tempered with reason, then when it came to her brother's family, she was willing to sacrifice everything. "Mom, you're having surgery in a couple of days. You really should try to worry less." That one remark shut her right up. She went back to her room to cry. "Honestly, I should have seen it coming. She's only ever magnanimous and helpful when her own interests aren't at stake. The moment there's any potential cost to herself, she beats a hasty retreat." In the end, my brother didn't take the job at that company after we talked him out of it. Instead, he picked up a few odd jobs around town. It had been half a month since the college entrance exams, and the results were about to be released. I slipped away from my mom early and made my way into town. In my past life, my family didn't have a computer or internet, so I had to ask my homeroom teacher, Mr. Sue, to check my scores for me, but to my utter surprise, my mom found out about it. 10. My grades were usually pretty good. After the college entrance exam, I estimated my score to be 60 points above the first-tier cutoff, and I happily shared the news with my family. The whole family was counting on me to get into a decent university. I was waiting anxiously at home for news from Teacher Sue. But what came instead was my mother bringing home my college entrance exam score, a mere 200 points. Not even enough to get into the lowest tier university. I simply couldn't believe it, but at that time, my mother was pressuring me to donate a kidney, keeping watch over me day and night so I couldn't leave the house. In the end, I missed the deadline to have my grades reviewed, a regret that would stay with me for the rest of my life. It wasn't until I turned 30, I was shocked to learn that my cousin, Renee, had been using my name at her job. Realizing what this meant, I rushed straight to the company where she worked. I frantically searched and found her ID card, where the name Chloe was clearly printed. So it turns out I wasn't the one who failed to get into university all those years ago. I went to her house with a knife, demanding answers in a frenzy. Renee, shielded in the arms of her wealthy husband, admitted in fear, "It was Auntie who swapped them. She said you owed me." I collapsed to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably, only to be taken away by the police who arrived on the scene. When my mother arrived, the police were comforting me. Seeing the hatred in my eyes, she dropped to her knees with a thud. "Renee didn't know. She lost her mother when she was little. She's already so pitiful. Please, just let it go." Even the police were taken aback. A mother actually let her niece take her own daughter's place at school. What kind of mother does that? The police, worried I'd be upset again, Gently persuaded my mom to leave, but it's too late now. What good is the truth coming out? I was kept in the dark about this for 12 years. The person who took my place got a university degree, a high-paying job, and now has a happy family. As for me, with only a high school diploma and missing a kidney, I couldn't get a corporate job or handle physical labor. I ended up drifting through life as a cleaner, living alone in a cramped basement, and was later sentenced to 8 years for breaking and entering with a knife. 11. The results won't be out until noon. My brother took me for a stroll around town and bought me all sorts of tasty treats. In the past, this would have been utterly unthinkable. My mother never allowed us to go to town. She said the bustling streets would corrupt us, and that only by staying home and working hard could we be good children. On the rare occasions my father brought home special snacks, my mother would hide them away to give to the other children in the village. After walking around, I realized there weren't many shops in town, not even a proper clothing store. Suddenly, I remembered the clothes my brother had made for me. In his past life, after losing his leg, he was confined to doing chores at home. To my surprise, he taught himself tailoring. He could perfectly recreate any garment after seeing it just once. It was also because he could earn money again. That's when my mom set her sights on him again. As I walked to the internet cafe, I was thinking it over. Universities offer student loans these days, and I could get a part-time job on Sundays to cover living expenses. That way, Grandma's money could be saved for my brother to open a clothing store. Chloe, the results are in. You scored 632 points. My brother was so excited he looked like he wanted to crawl right into the computer screen. Hearing his words, my whole body trembled, and I finally covered my face and burst into tears. Let's hurry home and tell Grandma and Dad the good news. My little sister got into university. My brother's face flushed with excitement as he grabbed my arm and pulled me outside. I quickly grabbed his arm, and my brother turned back with a puzzled look. If we tell them, my mom will find out too. In my past life, for my mom to have stopped Teacher Sue and hidden my grades, she and my uncle couldn't have managed it alone. 12. Chloe, you only scored 200 points on the exam. You won't be able to get into university. Just as I expected, the moment I stepped through the door, my mother rushed over, unable to contain herself, and broke the news to me with a look of profound regret. In my past life, I was completely stunned by this news. It never even crossed my mind to wonder why Mr. Sue hadn't come himself. Later on, I did have my doubts about my score, but my mother swore up and down that Mr. Sue had told her the results personally, and that there was absolutely no mistake. I felt so ashamed to face Mr. Sue that I didn't dare to see him again. It's unbelievable that such a clumsy trick managed to fool everyone. I pretended to be devastated, staggering a couple of steps before collapsing onto a stool. Mom, that can't be true. I don't believe it. Mr. Sue hasn't even arrived yet. I made a move as if to leave, and she immediately panicked. Your Uncle Julian accidentally ran over Teacher Sue's bicycle while driving in town. Teacher Sue then asked your Uncle Julian to pass on a message. I heard it right. Absolutely. It's 200 points. If you don't get in, it's fine. You're old enough now. I'll find you a good husband. That way, you can also help support your brother. So it was him. Uncle Julian is another one of my mother's childhood friends. He works as a driver for the town officials and has also always had a soft spot for my mom, so that's why Teacher Sue never showed up in my past life. Mom, how could I have failed? My grades are always so good. Maybe Uncle Julian misheard the results. Let me check with my classmates. How can you doubt Uncle Julian? Don't you know what a wonderful man he is? But her guilty, evasive lip just made me want to laugh. Oh, I know exactly what a good man Uncle Julian is. Last time you went to his house, he took you to his room, saying he was going to teach you properly. What a stand-up guy. My mom, for some reason I couldn't fathom, blushed a deep crimson and whispered for me to keep it a secret. I covered my mouth, staring in shock at the space behind the door. But Dad already knows. Outside the door stood my father, his face contorted, a hoe slung over his shoulder. He must have just come back from the fields. You went to see him again. I have no idea what they talked about that day. My father still went out to work every day, but things got hard for my mother. My dad laid down the law. She had to do the housework, or she'd be kicked out of the house. He may be a decent man, but he has his limits. With infidelity staring him in the face, how could he not be furious? Good that he's angry. The goal is to make my mother completely isolated. 13. Soon, it was the final day to submit our college applications. She still hadn't found a chance to get into my room alone. Chloe, let me see your exam admission ticket. She really couldn't wait. In my past life, still lost in grief, I just handed her my exam admission ticket without a second thought. It was only after getting my exam ticket that my uncle and the others could fill out the college applications. As for my college entrance exam scores, they seemed to have so much faith in my abilities that they didn't even bother to check them. I just casually applied to a few non-prestigious universities, completely wasting the grades that could have gotten me into a top-tier 211 school. I replied indifferently. I threw it away. How could you just throw it away? She shrieked. I failed the exam again. I'm stuck here working the fields. What use do I have for an admission ticket now? Unless, Mom, are you saying you'll support me for another year of prep school? Time was slipping away before our eyes, in her desperation. She started to kneel before me again, a mother kneeling to her own daughter. It was a sight that drew all eyes. Soon, the villagers who had returned from the fields gathered at the door, watching the scene with curiosity. Chloe, I'm begging you, have some pity on your sister. She's never had a mother since she was little. I pretended to be utterly bewildered, helped her up with some effort, and raised my voice to shout, Mom, I won't stop you from donating your kidney. When they heard it was a kidney donation, people got even more worked up. Seeing that I refused to talk about my grades, she had no choice but to tell the truth. I'm doing this for your own good. Chloe, a woman's place is to support her husband and raise her children. Wouldn't it be nice to stay by your mother's side, support her husband and raise her children? Then why didn't you keep my cousin here and let her take my place at school? I stood up coldly. And didn't Julian send word that I scored 200 points? Don't blame him. Mom made him do it. She was crying pitifully, but everyone around was stunned. Everyone knows how crucial the college entrance exam is. What kind of mother trades her own daughter's chance at university for someone else's? My son's grades were also brought back from town by Julian. Could they have been swapped too? A single stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. Julian made regular trips to and from town every year, bringing back grades for quite a few people. He actually falsified grades to help others get into school. What parent wouldn't want their child to score higher? Auntie Lou charged off to the school ahead of everyone. Her son's grades were even worse, and she dreamed of nothing but seeing him get into university. People headed into town in small groups, eager to watch the drama unfold. My mother was still trailing behind, frantically shouting that Julian was a good man, and that swapping the grades was just to help more deserving students get into college. She couldn't stop the crowd, and could only shoot me a resentful look. Are you happy now? I laughed. Of course I'm not satisfied. How can I stop when you haven't been utterly ruined and disgraced? 14. Because too many people reported it, the police came to investigate and actually uncovered something, to curry favor with his boss. Julian schemed to swap his boss's son's grades with those of a child from a neighboring village. That child could have gone to university, but now he's working on the family farm. Upon hearing about this, their entire clan showed up. Julian meant well. The university is far from home. He was just trying to help you keep your son close. Please forgive him. My mother shielded Julian, pleading desperately with the aggrieved family. But those words didn't quell their anger. Instead, they stoked it into a greater fury. Even the police couldn't protect Julian. He ended up with 2 broken ribs. My mom did try to shield him, but she got 2 of her front teeth knocked out for her trouble. The boss's son got expelled too. The school took the poor kid back in, letting him start over as a freshman. Since my rebirth, I've actually managed to do some real good for once, because Julian ended up in prison. My mom has tried to drag me over to Neil and apologize to him on multiple occasions. After what you did to Uncle Julian, how can you even eat? You're coming with me to make it right. Mom, you still dare to go see him. If Auntie Lou finds out Uncle Lou went to prison for helping you cover up your grades, there's no way our family could hold her back. Julian's wife is notoriously fierce, the kind 3 grown men couldn't take on. My mother went pale with fright and never brought up visiting Julian again. During the summer break, I took my brother to the provincial capital and enrolled him in a technical college to learn tailoring. On my birthday, my mother was also wheeled into the operating room. The surgery was a success, and Uncle Silas was saved. My mother lay in the hospital bed, utterly despondent, while I packed our things. Mom, it's just a minor procedure. Once you're feeling better, we'll head home. We shouldn't take up hospital resources. On the 3rd day after the surgery, she could barely get out of bed. The elderly lady in the next bed, whom I'd been helping care for these past few days, was also getting ready to be discharged. That's just the kind of person my mom is. When my brother had his appendix out years ago, she made him leave the hospital the very next day, saying they shouldn't hug a bed. No, she's leading by example again, after I got back home. I couldn't touch the chickens or slaughter the pig, and I even saved the money Uncle Silas's family sent for her recovery. I'll donate it to the Red Cross later. Mom, don't you go thinking about that money. It's meant for saving lives. Under my care, my mother ended up losing 20 pounds. Her face turned sallow and gaunt, and new wrinkles even started to show. Back then, she had fair skin and a full figure, kept pampered and delicate by our family, and she flirted with countless men. In her telling, it was all because she was kind-hearted that she was so popular. She and those men were just friends. My mother had barely recovered for a few days before she couldn't sit still any longer. 15. Your sister Jinjin is a kind and simple soul. She'll be your sister-in-law from now on. My mother walked in with a young woman whose makeup was heavy and whose belly was slightly showing. I will never forget that face for as long as I live. In my past life, when my mother saw that my brother was making money again, she invited a wolf into our home under the guise of doing what was best for him. She brought back a heavily pregnant Jinjin for my brother, who had lost the use of his legs, to take responsibility for. If you abandon her, you're practically sentencing her to death. My son, Elaine's son, must take responsibility. Jinjin gave birth to a daughter and then ran away, although my brother never liked Jinjin. He treated the child as his own. He single-handedly raised the child, playing the role of both father and mother, all the way until she was 12. Jinjin came running back again, demanding the child and money. When my brother refused, she conspired with her lover to burn my brother to death in his own home. My hatred for her is every bit as deep as my mother's. The village was highly suspicious of strangers, let alone a pregnant woman brought back by the local simpleton. Another crowd of onlookers had gathered at the door. Chloe, Jinjin can't manage the child on her own. We'll need to look out for her more from now on. I smiled and welcomed Jinjin inside, settling her in my room. Don't worry, Mom. I'll make sure to take good care of Sister Jinjin. My grandmother was so furious that she'd chase my mom around with a broom every day, making her howl in pain, but she never dared lay a hand on Jinjin. Who is pregnant? What kind of a mother are you? But those days were over soon enough, 16, because my acceptance letter had arrived. Grandma was so overjoyed she dropped her broom, put on her reading glasses, and kept running her fingers over it. Chloe has really made something of herself. When my dad came home, he was also visibly moved, his eyes glistening with tears. Study hard, son. I'll work to support you. The truth is, he did love us. He was just terrified of Mom leaving him that winter. My mother gave the new clothes my grandmother made for me to Renee. On New Year's Eve, the buses to town had stopped running, so my father walked all the way there. It was bitterly cold with deep snow. When he got home, his hands, feet, and ears were swollen from frostbite. His padded jacket was soaked with sweat that had frozen solid. It crackled as I helped him out of it, yet, like a treasure, he pulled a brand new padded jacket from inside his coat. My father grinned happily, a bit foolishly, and said, Chloe's new clothes. When the acceptance letter arrived, I made a point of walking all around the village so that plenty of people would see it. That very afternoon, my uncle showed up at our door with Renee in tow. Cousin, please, don't take this from me. Renee dropped to her knees again. She really is my mother's niece, through and through. Chloe, just give the admission letter to Renee. Our family owes her this. If it weren't for us, her mother would never have. Mom, you taught me to be honest and keep my word since I was a kid. I listened to you, so I can't pull a bait-and switch like this. Besides, if you hadn't insisted on stopping that thief, how would Auntie have ended up getting stabbed to death? The year I turned 12, she went to town with my aunt and saw a thief stealing. Her sense of justice went into overdrive. She just had to reason with him and block his way. My aunt was purely collateral damage. My mom kept muttering on about how much she owed them. I cut her off impatiently. Mom, if that's the case, we owe Renee far too much. How could simply securing her a university spot ever be enough? My mother thought for a moment and nodded. I went back to the room, pulled Jinjin from her bed, and pushed her toward my uncle. Uncle, Renee, I know no amount of compensation can make up for the pain of losing Auntie. That's why Mom brought Jinjin back the other day. She's to marry Uncle and become Renee's new mother. My uncle's eyes nearly popped out of his head at the sight of the young and beautiful Jinjin, and he agreed without a second thought. Jinjin, noticing the BMW keychain at my uncle's waist, quietly fell into step behind him. In the moment my mother was stunned, Jinjin had already left with my uncle. All that remained was Renee, standing there and cursing my mother out. 17. After getting rid of that troublemaker Jinjin, I was in high spirits. My brother's studies in the provincial capital were going smoothly too. Before long, he could make a complete garment by himself and even took on some paid work in his spare time. The only thing was, my mother found out about it. Give me the money. We've already ruined Renee's life. The least we can do is give her some financial support. She stood righteously in the doorway, blocking the way. She kept insisting that we were the ones who had harmed Renee. Renee already lost her mother, and now she has to deal with a stepmother like Jinjin. Do you have any idea what her daily life is like? No one paid her any mind anymore. Even if she starved herself at home, no one would care. In despair, she ran to Renee's house. 2 days later, she returned, beaming with joy. Your uncle has found a way to make a fortune. Just invest 100 now, and you'll get 10,000 back later. I was absolutely stunned. Nothing good comes that easy. This is clearly a pyramid scheme, isn't it? Your uncle is willing to let bygones be bygones and help us make a fortune. Hurry up and get all our savings out. My response was a look that said I thought she'd lost her mind. My dad and my grandma grabbed their hoes and headed straight for the fields. My mother wailed and carried on at home for a bit, then suddenly took off like a shot. This time, she didn't come home for 7 days. My dad was getting worried. Usually, when she threw a fit, she'd be back in 3 to 5 days. This was the first time she'd been gone this long. Just then, my mother burst into the house as if she were being chased by a pack of dogs. She slammed the rickety door shut with a deafening crash, then leaned against the wall, panting heavily. My father asked her what was wrong, and she threw her arms around him. "Daju, you're the only one who can save us now. You have to turn yourself in." My dad was a bit bewildered by what she said and scratched his head. "They're just a bunch of swindlers." My brother had no choice. They were about to run off with the money. She grabbed my dad and pulled him toward the door. "Go to the police station and tell them you're the one who killed him." 18. "Why should I? I didn't kill anyone. A life for a life. If you don't go, my brother is a dead man." My father had completely given up on her. He shoved her aside and sank into a chair in silence. "Your brother's life matters, but my son's life doesn't." Furious, Grandma picked up a broom and started hitting my mother, who was threatening to kill herself. When the police arrived, my mother was still throwing a tantrum on the floor, trying to get my father to take the blame for my uncle. They handcuffed my mother right then and there and told the rest of us to come down to the station. It was on the road that we finally learned the whole story. Seeing that her uncle had money, Jinjin persuaded him to attend a pyramid scheme meeting. He was instantly captivated, convinced this venture was perfect for a successful man like him. Not only did he invest his entire life savings, but he also held a recruitment rally to encourage fellow villagers to invest. My mom saw how lucrative it looked and wanted a piece of the action, but since our family had no money, she could only tag along with my uncle to drum up investments. She was a smooth talker and had an honest face, and she actually succeeded. They managed to swindle a lot of people into it. As the money kept piling up, even Jinjin and the others started to get cold feet, looking for any chance to take the money and run. Didn't want Mom, who was still working late, to see it. She called her uncle and cousin over to try and stop them, but the con man was big and strong, and they couldn't hold him back. In a moment of desperation, her uncle grabbed a hoe and struck Jinjin on the head. They say her brains were knocked out. It wasn't until he had killed someone that he knew true fear. My mom came up with a terrible idea, planning to force my dad to turn himself in and take the blame. Even as we were being taken to the police station, my mom was still screaming that my dad was the murderer. My uncle arrived early and saw my mom shouting and yelling, trying to get my dad to take the fall for her. In a fit of rage, he slapped her across the face and told her to shut up. 189. The crime scene was still intact. The signs of their struggle and the fingerprints on the hoe were all perfectly clear. The case was wrapped up without a hitch. The courtroom was packed on the day of the trial, just like the scene from my past life, only the people in the defendant's dock had changed. In my previous life, I was the one sentenced to 8 years for breaking and entering with a knife, and I died by suicide in prison, consumed by despair. In this new life, it was my mother who was sentenced to 20 years in prison for organizing a pyramid scheme involving massive fraud and participating in a murder. My uncle received the death penalty for intentional homicide, and Renee, who had just turned 18, was also sentenced to 5 years. As they were taking my mother away, she put up a fierce struggle. I truly meant well, she cried. I wanted them to make money, but all around her were people she had swindled out of their life savings. Their hatred for her was palpably stronger. The money Jinjin and the others swindled was mostly returned before they could even move it, but the money my mom collected, she had already generously given it all away to the homeless on the street. There's no getting it back. No. Everyone absolutely despises her, especially Uncle Silas and his family. My mom talked him into it so thoroughly that he even sold his house to invest. Now he's lost everything. 20. After the summer vacation, I came to the provincial capital for school. My brother's tailor shop is right by the school gate, and business is quite good. Grandma has also been brought to live in the city. In my spare time, I've also visited my mother in prison. It's just that, after each time she kindly tried to help a poor fellow inmate escape, she successfully got herself sentenced to life imprisonment. My mother probably never understood, even to her dying day, why someone as profoundly good-hearted as her ended up spending her final years behind bars. Story 2. In my senior year of high school, to look after my best friend, I ended up bringing breakfast for the entire class for a whole semester. It was hot dry noodles, 3 yuan a serving. That's a peeled Australian lobster, a steak, plus an egg. When it was time to settle the bill at the end of the month, my best friend spilled hot dry noodles, soup and all, right onto my clothes. I was stunned, but she looked incredibly hurt and said, "I misjudged you. Your family is so rich. Why do you still need to make money off us poor people? The bald guy next door sells noodles for only 1 yuan a bowl, but you charge 3, you're making 6,000 yuan a semester. Don't you feel guilty?" I explained that the ingredients were different. The cost was different, and if they thought it was too expensive, I wouldn't bring it anymore, but my best friend forced me to bring breakfast for the whole class every day for free. On the day of the college entrance exam, the entire class was throwing up and had diarrhea. My best friend, heartbroken and furious, accused me. How could you poison the whole class just to keep your top spot? You don't deserve to be my best friend. The entire class, incited by her, ganged up and pushed me off the rooftop. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the time my best friend asked me to bring her lunch. Nora, the cafeteria food is absolutely disgusting. Hearing Maggie's affected voice again, I realized I had been reborn. The pain of every bone and muscle in my body breaking still lingered. Maggie has been my desk mate since childhood. We went through kindergarten, elementary school, middle school, and all the way up to our senior year of high school together. Her family was poor, so life and school were always a struggle for her. I always brought her tasty treats, pretending it was because my family bought too much, saying they'd go bad if she didn't help me finish them. Whenever my family bought me study materials, they always got a copy for her too, being careful not to hurt her pride. I always said Mom and Dad bought duplicates. Since childhood, whatever I had, she had too. Until senior year of high school, when Maggie's brother was born. Her family cut off her allowance and forced her to drop out of school to get married. My parents sponsored her, which is why she didn't have to drop out of school. I never thought she'd stab me in the back. The strong smell of chives brought me back to reality. Maggie threw a half-eaten vegetable bun on my desk. 5, I frowned, but she threw herself into my arms. Then, in a cutesy, high-pitched voice, she whined, Nora, could you grab me some breakfast tomorrow? That bald guy's noodles by the entrance are only $1 a bowl, but I can't afford any sides, so could you just get me a bowl of his noodles, please? Maggie complained about how awful the cafeteria food was and then played the victim, asking me to bring her breakfast. I felt bad for her, knowing how tough things were for her. I figured bringing her breakfast would be no trouble at all. It just meant our private chef at home would be making one extra breakfast for her, over time. The diverse and never-repeating breakfast options captivated everyone in the class. They all begged me to help them get breakfast, 30 portions at a time, 3 yuan each, with shrimp and meat, generous and filling. But when it was time to settle up at the end of the month, Maggie's attitude completely changed. She was in tears, looking utterly wronged. Nora, I misjudged you. Your family is so rich. Why do you still need to make money off us poor people? The bald guy next door sells noodles for only 1 yuan a bowl, but you charge 3, you make 6,000 a semester. Don't you feel guilty? I immediately explained that the ingredients were different, and so were the costs. The prawns are air-freighted Australian lobsters, and the beef is M12 Wagyu. Even the noodles are freshly made by the chef every morning, not counting labor. 3 yuan wouldn't even buy you a single river shrimp. If they think it's too expensive, I won't bring them next time. I'll refund all their previous meal expenses. But Maggie wouldn't let it go. Are you showing off how rich your family is? If you're that wealthy, why not just buy breakfast for the whole class for free? When I refused, she rallied our classmates to report me to the principal. Both my parents are busy with work, and I didn't want to bother them with such a trivial matter. After all, it's not like our family is short on money, and just like that, they enjoyed free breakfast for the entire semester, until one day during break, I overheard Maggie talking with a classmate in the restroom stall. Maggie, you're the one with the brilliant ideas. Without you, we'd never get to enjoy such delicious and expensive breakfast for free. Maggie let out a snicker. Nora's just like her idiotic parents. More money than sense, in a fit of pique. I cut off her funding and refused everyone's breakfast requests, but on the day of the national college entrance exam, the entire class suffered from food poisoning. Maggie falsely accused me of doing it to maintain my top-ranking position in the class. She claimed I had poisoned the breakfast earlier. It ruined the exam for everyone. The whole class, swayed by her instigation, joined forces to push me off the rooftop. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the moment when Maggie begged me to bring her food, facing her request across 2 lifetimes. I flat out refused. No can do. If you think the cafeteria food is gross, then just go hungry. Hunger is the best sauce. It was the same in my past life. The noisy classroom instantly fell silent. They seemed shocked that I would talk to Maggie like that. After all, while I wasn't exactly at her beck and call, I'd always been quick to help when she asked. Maggie's face instantly fell. In a flash, her eyes welled up, and tears started to flow. I know my family is poor, and $1 is all I have. If you don't want to take it, fine. But how can you say that boarders like us only deserve to eat slop from the cafeteria? Most of the students in the class boarded at school to save time for studying. As for boarding students, all 3 meals a day were eaten in the cafeteria. This statement immediately sparked public outrage, Maggie's undisguised malice. And my classmates, pointing fingers and gossiping at me, it reminded me of that backpack full of hot dry noodles from my previous life. To ensure the hot dry noodles stay warm when delivered to classmates, I switched to a 100,000 yuan mountaineering backpack so that all classmates can access the latest study materials. I used the Huanggang secret papers my parents found for me. I made free copies for my classmates, yet all my kindness towards them only led to this. After Maggie pushed me off the rooftop, the entire class helped her forge my suicide note, solidifying the accusation that I took my own life out of guilt. They'd even step over my dead body to demand exorbitant compensation from my parents. Nora, you have to apologize to Maggie. It's just bringing breakfast. Your family is so rich. You should bring breakfast for the whole class for free. I smirked. I didn't get a second chance at life just to be guilt-tripped by them. I rushed over to my homeroom teacher, and in front of the whole class, I loudly reported, "Teacher Zhang, Maggie forced me to get her breakfast, and when I refused, she led the whole class in bullying me. I feel terrible. I want to die. I can't focus on a single word. I want to change my seat. I want to switch classes. I want to transfer schools. In high school, money and influence might not get you everything, but grades certainly can." As the school's top student bound for Tsinghua or Peking University, ranked first in the entire grade, anyone or anything that hinders my progress is the enemy in the teacher's eyes. In the end, I was moved to the ultimate king seat next to the teacher's desk. Maggie was with tears streaming down her face. Maggie and I are in a cold war. We used to be inseparable, but now even a glance earns me a glare. I don't care, though. I know that since I've been reborn. Nothing and no one is more important than my future. At noon, the driver brought me lunch as usual. Just then, Maggie walked in, carrying her lunchbox. She dramatically shook the lunchbox in her hand. "If you don't bring me food, plenty of others will. A meat and a veggie dish, lunch from Songmingshi next door, and it didn't cost me a dime. If you apologize to me now, I might consider staying friends with you. But you'll have to bring me 3 meals a day. And I'll give you a symbolic 1 yuan per meal. 3 yuan daily. Is being friends with her some kind of achievement worth bragging about?" I completely ignored her and opened my own lunchbox, oolong tea, wagyu beef, and my favorite sweet and sour pork ribs, a small box of freshly cut fruit on the side, so delicious it never gets old. I shook my head, feeling quite troubled, eating this well every day. I'm genuinely worried I'll make Maggie next door cry with envy. I glanced at Maggie, who was desperately trying to swallow her saliva beside me. $3. Sorry, but this box of fruit alone costs more than $3. Maggie lost it. Who cares about your food? Do rich people really think they can just trample all over someone's self-respect like this? Her classmates gathered around to comfort her. Tears streamed down her face, as if she'd suffered the greatest injustice imaginable. Yet, she stubbornly lifted her head. "I gave you a chance. Everyone sees your cold-hearted nature now. From this day forward, you'll have nothing but money." I ate noisily with my mouth open. No, I still have the top grade in my year. Gentle Maggie was so furious, she squeezed the lunchbox in her hand until it creaked. After that incident, Maggie completely held a grudge against me. Even so, I didn't let my parents stop financially supporting her. After all, if I can help it, I still don't want to ruin her life. But Maggie didn't see it that way. She used to always borrow my phone and let her classmates use it for free. She gained a good reputation, while I ended up with phone bills and countless spam calls. After the Cold War, the boarding students had no choice but to shamelessly ask me for loans themselves. Before crying sister even spoke, her voice was already choked with tears. "Nora, can I borrow your phone? My family lives out of town, and the call rates are too expensive." As soon as Big Picture Bro opened his mouth, he had that condescending, "I know best" tone. 5. Me too, me too. You never offer your phone. We always have to ask. When it comes to generosity, you really can't compare to Maggie. I gave a wry smile. My generosity is indeed small. If I don't have money to make a call, I won't. Whoever is more generous can lend you theirs. The classroom, which had been noisy with students leaving after school, suddenly fell silent. Crying sister started whimpering, and Big Picture Brother clenched his fists. I grabbed my backpack to leave, but Maggie stopped me. With tears streaming down her face, she pitifully grabbed my hand and said, "Nora, are you not helping us because you're mad at me? What do I have to do for you to forgive me, and to agree to bring your phone tomorrow?" Tears streamed down her cheeks, making her look utterly pathetic. "Someone like you, who gets to go home every day. How could you possibly understand that 1 phone call a day is how we show our parents we miss them? You're the only one in the whole class who dared to sneak in a phone, and we didn't even report you. What more do you want?" It's funny, the same classmates who were speechless just moments ago, all rallied behind Maggie, praising her for speaking up for what's right and for her broad perspective. They were basically saying I'm rich but heartless. I pretended not to understand their emotional manipulation and the calculation in Maggie's eyes. Just like always, I took their power banks home to charge, and I promised to bring them their phones tomorrow. When the students asked me for their phones this morning, I brushed them off by saying I'd forgotten them. I was still sweating buckets on the playground during the break exercises, but then an unpleasant voice came over the intercom. "Dear students and teachers, I'm Maggie from the honors class. I'm publicly reporting that Nora has violated school rules by bringing her phone to class, playing games instead of paying attention, and seriously disrupting the classroom environment. This broadcast was all part of Maggie's little scheme. She was afraid the teacher would go easy on me because of my grades." A wave of nausea rose in my throat. It felt like the slimy chill of being watched by an icy serpent. When I returned to the classroom with the teacher, all the classmates crowded around my desk, their faces either gloating or triumphant, not a trace of guilt or sympathy to be found. I clutched my backpack tightly, refusing to let the teacher check it. Maggie's icy voice cut through the air. "Professor, you wouldn't actually let Nora off the hook just because her family donated buildings to the school, would you? Are we really going to let educational institutions bow to wealth and yield to power? We may be poor, but we have ambition and drive. Never underestimate the potential of those with humble beginnings." With just a few words, Maggie successfully stirred up resentment towards the rich among her classmates, and everyone started to jeer. Brother Vision spoke with righteous indignation. "Where is justice? Where is fairness?" Sister Weepy's tone was firm. "We demand the school treat everyone equally and issue a public reprimand." My teacher, who is probably trying to find a way to let me off the hook, now looked at me with a troubled expression. I was still clutching my backpack tightly. I looked around and saw Gaju. "Are you sure you want to report me?" He spread his index finger and thumb, signaling me to broaden my perspective. I looked around at my classmates again. Yesterday, when he asked me to take it home to charge, he was all sweet talk. When reporting me today, they turned on me without a hint of mercy. I handed the backpack to the teacher. "Teacher, I firmly uphold the school's rules and regulations. I follow them to the letter and fully support any disciplinary measures the school deems necessary." The teacher opened the backpack. Over 20 phones and dozens of power banks were revealed. The classmates who had been gloating moments ago instantly turned pale. Maggie's face went ashen. Among the phones, the Apple device I had given her stood out conspicuously. But my Huawei wasn't among them. My classmates around me started wailing. "Nora, didn't you say this morning you forgot to bring it? How could you lie?" Sniffle. "I saved up 3 months of my allowance to buy this phone. Nora, you're messing with me." The cursing only stopped when the teacher signaled. I stared intently at Maggie. Let's give a round of applause for Maggie's righteous act of putting family aside for the greater good. Truly the most principled classmate, even turning themselves in without hesitation. The moment those words were spoken, the anger directed at me instantly shifted. Maggie's face turned ashen, tears streaming down. "I didn't mean to. I only did it for Nora's sake. I didn't want to." But this time, no one was buying her act anymore. All cell phones were confiscated. They would only be returned upon graduation. 5. The other students were looking at Maggie with pure hatred in their eyes. I didn't come out of it unscathed either. After that incident, my classmates started giving me the cold shoulder even more. No one asked me to bring them breakfast anymore, and no one came to me to charge their devices after school. Even when I scored full marks, the whole class would still boo. Amidst the sighs, I grew calmer. After all, I don't need the approval of these ungrateful people. Maggie was even more upset than I was. My family has stopped funding her. I'm kind-hearted, not a saint. Someone who constantly schemes against me doesn't deserve my support. Without me as her free blood bank, letting her leech off me, she was barely making ends meet. The students whose phones were confiscated also blamed her for it. Without the support I provided, her influence among the students gradually waned. To salvage her crumbling relationships with classmates and her nearly empty wallet, during a break, she proactively suggested, "Classmates, to ensure everyone gets a nutritious breakfast, I've contacted Samantha from the next class. Her father will provide us with beef noodles every morning. While these noodles usually cost $15 elsewhere, Samantha's giving us a friends and family discount, only 10 yuan per bowl. 10 yuan is a steal. You literally can't go wrong with this deal. Compared to the school cafeteria's never-changing steamed buns, mantou, and triangular pastries, the street food outside is practically a gourmet feast fit for royalty." Everyone lined up eagerly, cheering and shouting. Maggie has once again become everyone's beloved little fairy. She leaned in close to my ear, a smug look on her face, and whispered, "See, people know what's right. I still have everyone's support in class, and they're all still so grateful to me. So what if you're rich? You're still just a pathetic little nobody that no one loves." The next day, I finally saw the beef noodle soup Maggie had promised. On top of the bland, clear broth, there was a single Napa cabbage leaf and a handful of pickled mustard greens, then a few scattered pieces of meat, their structure indistinguishable. The lunchbox still had 23 of its space left. In my previous life, the noodles I brought only cost 3 yuan, and the toppings were so generous the lunchbox couldn't even close properly. I was so worried my classmates wouldn't have enough to eat, or wouldn't eat well, but they were so picky. And even demanded I change the menu every day. They're paying $10 for this bowl of beef noodles and acting like it's a blessing. I guess I just have a narrow perspective. Tearful girl said pitifully, Maggie, is this really all you get for $10? I'm still starving. Maggie didn't hold back just because the other person was a girl, she said. If you're not up to the task, don't blame the tools, look at yourself. Why are you the only one who can't get enough to eat? Maybe you're too greedy, or perhaps you're just not cut out for the finer things. In the end, to prove they weren't wild boars, the girls all left half their noodles. The boys automatically went to the snack shop to grab some extra food. Under Maggie's leadership, the entire class's perspective was elevated. After school, I turned down the ride from my family's driver. Carrying my backpack, I went to check out Samantha's family noodle shop. I found their beef noodles for 10 yuan. The beef pieces were distinct, and the portion of noodles was huge. I don't know if Samantha was being malicious on purpose, or if Maggie was embezzling funds. Just as I was about to leave, I overheard Samantha's conversation with her dad. Dad, this lymph meat already smells bad. Is it really okay? These poppers only get $3 a head. Serving them lymph node meat is me being downright charitable. Her father then picked up a cabbage leaf and snorted into it. I was so disgusted I nearly threw up. The next day, I saw Brother Visionary happily slurping down his beef noodles. I felt a wave of nausea, noticing my gaze. Gajiji raised a hand to block me. Jealous. Want some? Give me $50 and I'll let you. 5. I turned my head away. Look at my own 4 dishes and 1 soup. I don't have. Seeing you eat with such gusto, I envy your good appetite. If you love it, eat more. Anyway, it's just stinky lymph meat and snot-covered cabbage, not for my mouth. On my way to the restroom, I saw Maggie in the corner, chowing down, a full bowl of noodles, with distinct chunks of beef, egg, and sausage. The aroma of chili and sesame oil mixed with the unpleasant smell of the restroom, eating with great relish. It was worlds apart from the beef noodles my classmates had, and so, sharing breakfast became our class tradition. It's not like no one ever protested. It's not like no one thought it was expensive. Everyone's just waiting for a sucker like me to take the lead. Maggie publicly claimed that people were free to come and go as they pleased, but secretly, she bribed the class leaders with favors. Students who don't order meals will be ostracized, getting assigned to clean the toilets during the big cleanup. Class activities are always last, getting no benefits and only doing all the work. In the end, everyone was forced to willingly pay up. The meal allowance went up from 10 to 20 yuan, but it was still the same unidentifiable lymph meat and cabbage leaves covered in snot. Maggie tried to manipulate me like she used to, but I just didn't play along. I had already been ostracized by the entire class. She wouldn't be missed if she were gone, and she wouldn't add anything if she were here. Yet, even so, the tragedy of her past life repeated itself once more. On the eve of the college entrance exam, the classmates once again suffered from food poisoning. Overnight, all the students were rushed to the hospital, a chaotic scene of vomiting and diarrhea. Maggie and I were the only survivors. Maggie tried to clear her name. She rushed to the hospital where our classmates were getting their stomachs pumped. She raised her arm in a rallying cry, "We eat and live together." So how come the whole class got food poisoning, and only Nora was spared? She must have drugged our food. She's the one who poisoned all of us. Still, some sensible parents raised a question, but what would be her motive for drugging us? To keep her top spot in class. We'd accidentally gotten on her bad side before, so she made our whole class take the fall and be her cannon fodder. Her words were like oil dropped into boiling water, and the family's emotions instantly erupted. They surrounded my family's villa. Rotten eggs, wilted vegetables, and dog's blood. They completely trashed the exterior walls of my house. A loud knocking buzzed at the door. "Nora, don't pretend you're not home. I know you're in there. You had the nerve to poison us, but not the guts to open the door." The parents tried to stop their nonsense. Little did they expect the family members' emotions to flare up even more intensely. "Since you rotten to the core parents are home too, we might as well settle all scores right now. We've called the police. Your whole family will rot in jail for this. You'll pay with your lives for destroying our child's future." The police arrived just in time to prevent a tragedy. My father shielded me firmly behind him. My child would never, and has no reason to, poison a classmate, without evidence. We will never admit to this accusation. The parent perceived the father's defense as a provocation. 5. Do you think your family can manipulate everything just because you have a few lousy bucks? You must have Nora detained. She's the culprit, and she must be barred from taking next year's college entrance exams. If the police can't give us justice, we'll make your whole family pay with their blood. The memory of falling from a great height in my past life sent a shiver down my spine. My dad, thinking I was scared, pulled me tightly behind him. You have no evidence, so how can you claim my daughter poisoned him? How can you stop my child from taking the college entrance exam? The parents scoffed. Everyone else was poisoned, but your daughter survived. Isn't that enough to tell you something? With the help of the police officers, I finally found an opportunity to speak amidst a crowd of protesting parents. I didn't get poisoned because my nanny brought me all 3 meals from home. What does their poisoning have to do with me? Some parents had an epiphany. Are you saying there's something wrong with the school cafeteria? The homeroom teacher who followed along shook their heads so vigorously it looked like a rattle drum. Impossible. If it were the school cafeteria's fault, how could only this one class have gotten food poisoning? Seeing they couldn't pin the blame on the school as the scapegoat, the families then turned their angry gazes toward me. Oh, Nora, so you're learning to twist concepts now, huh? Do you really think blaming the school will clear your name? Don't think we don't know your motive for poisoning them. You were just jealous of your classmates' good grades, and you wanted to be the top student in the whole school for the college entrance exam. I scoffed aloud. I already am the top student in the whole school. Poisoning them, would that make me the top in the city or the province? The homeroom teacher, pressured by the parents, also spoke up at the opportune moment. Nora has more than enough talent to be the top student in the province. She'd be crazy to poison her classmates and ruin her own future. The homeroom teacher, who had just managed to stand firm, cowered like a quail under their fists again. The family members started yelling curses. The rich do evil without needing a reason. Every cent they have is stained with the blood of us working class people, with parents that vicious. Their offspring are born rotten. No wickedness from them would surprise me. My father couldn't take it anymore and rolled up his sleeves, ready to fight. I held back my impulsive father. I didn't want our family tainted by these parasites. I ripped off the fig leaf covering these parents who couldn't tell right from wrong. Maggie didn't tell you that the whole class found the cafeteria breakfast inedible, and every morning they ate her specially customized beef noodle feast. Every single day, without missing a meal. The police officers acted swiftly. The suspect was quickly traced to Samantha's noodle shop. In less than 3 hours, the lab results combined with the victim's testimony, I was cleared of suspicion. The lymphatic meat at Samantha's place was cheap cuts from dead pigs, and the cabbage wasn't even washed. Samantha's dad is like Walter White from Breaking Bad, and all her classmates became the guinea pigs and victims. Samantha stood with her hands on her hips, utterly distraught. You only give $3, but you want meat and vegetables. Do you not understand prices? Or are you just playing dumb and trying to fleece my family? My family runs a restaurant. We're not a charity. Giving you guys lymph nodes is already us being generous. Gajuji happened to be coming out of the restroom and instantly lost it when he heard what Samantha said. Bullshit. We're so generous. How could we be so stingy? We clearly paid 10 yuan per meal. And then raised it to 15 yuan to increase the portion size. Samantha couldn't stand being wronged in the slightest. That's what Maggie from your class told me. 3 yuan for meat and vegetables. We all have the transfer records, yet she herself buys my 30 yuan supreme all-inclusive combo every single day. Even the most naive person understood then. Maggie was acting as a middleman, profiting off others' misfortune. The crowd began to grow restless. Where's Maggie? Get her out here to face us, but that self-proclaimed champion of justice who rallied everyone had already fled. She never had food poisoning in the first place. I'm at home, fully focused and actively preparing for my exams. After a barrage of calls, Maggie finally picked up. She replied sharply, I earn this money because I have business acumen. Your children have diarrhea because it's their fate. A tribulation they were meant to endure. You can blame the heavens and the earth. But you can't blame me. The previously aggressive family members were instantly disarmed. The students cried bitterly, filled with regret. But if you hadn't pocketed the difference, we wouldn't have gotten food poisoning. All they heard from the other end was the dial tone after the call disconnected. The truth was crystal clear. My parents didn't want to get involved in this mess. They took me home and we turned in early. After all, my college entrance exams were still ahead of me. Who can truly save whom? Really, it was the second day of the college entrance exam. More than half of the students were still on 4 drips in the hospital, unconscious. They had no choice but to sadly withdraw from the exam. Big picture guy is actually in the same exam hall as me. 5. He's answering questions while spewing nonsense. His right hand writes furiously, while his left flashes the pretentious big picture hand sign. Everyone in the exam hall is holding their noses. Just trying to survive this ordeal, the challenging environment only fueled my fighting spirit. The little red book in my chest glowed brightly. The words flowed effortlessly from my pen. I'm fully prepared for my exam this afternoon. Masks and perfume are both essential, but Gajugu was completely drained from diarrhea. He went to the hospital to share the hardships with his classmates. They say before he passed out. He was still waving his 8-character hands, shouting, "Let me out." I can still write. His parents couldn't bear to see him suffer, but still tried to get him to the exam hall, but they got splattered by the fluid he vomited, and had no choice but to take him to the hospital. I calmly finished all my exams. Even if you're not the top scorer in the province, getting into Tsinghua or Peking University is still a surefire path to happiness. I saw my classmates again 3 days after the college entrance exams ended. Our teacher organized a group score estimation session for us. When I walked in, almost all my classmates had already arrived. The looks I got were a mix of embarrassment and shame, but I stopped caring what these people thought a long time ago. Maggie was the last to arrive. She strutted in, bold and defiant. The moment she appeared, her classmates swarmed around her. "Maggie, how dare you even show your face in class? Do you have any idea you've ruined everyone's future? What are you going to do to compensate us for our losses? Poor mountains and bad waters breed unruly people. Your whole poor family raised an ungrateful wretch like you. Spit out the money you earned. How can you live with yourself, making such ill-gotten gains?" Even the usually kind homeroom teacher shook her head in disapproval. "Maggie, I've always taught you that a gentleman loves money, but acquires it through proper channels." However, Maggie was completely unappreciative. She hopped onto the desk and crossed her legs. "Who do you think you are? I've already graduated, yet you're still putting on your teacher act. Aren't you ashamed?" Then she unleashed a powerful move. Like a tidal wave crashing down, she forcefully shoved aside the classmates surrounding her. "Money." She patted the luxury bag on her shoulder. "No money, more meat, more vegetables. Have I not given you enough meat? Or have I skimped on your vegetables? If it weren't for me, you wouldn't even be eating such a special breakfast." The classmates were pounding their chests and stomping their feet in helpless fury. She noticed me standing by, completely detached from the situation. She couldn't resist making a sarcastic remark to stir up resentment. "If you were as wealthy as Nora, flying in Australian lobsters and Wagyu beef every day with never a repeated meal, you wouldn't have ended up with such bad diarrhea that you couldn't even take the college entrance exams. So, Nora, I heard you were in the same exam room as shit sprayer guy, and it wasn't a pleasant experience, feeling marinated in his crap and piss. Don't blame him if you don't do well on your exam. You gotta own it if you're not up to par. So, big picture guy has a new nickname now, 5. This time, I'm definitely going to crush you. This time, I'll be number 1 in the class. And number 1 in the whole school too." She stood with her hands on her hips, letting out an evil cackle. I cut her off. "I forgot to tell you, Samantha's dad uses cabbage to wipe his snot. I bet that snot pickled cabbage has a unique flavor, wouldn't you say?" Before I even finished, a chorus of retching sounds filled the air. Looking at everyone's slightly green faces from food poisoning, I cracked a satisfied smile, worried they might not believe me. I connected my phone to the multimedia system, played the video I had secretly recorded that night. Maggie, who had been struggling to stay composed, finally lost control. She joined the vomiting brigade. The crying girl's eyes welled up, her hands trembling. "You knew all along. Why didn't you tell us? Aren't we your dear classmates anymore? We lived together day and night, as close as family. How could you treat your own family like this? What kind of family are you supposed to be? The kind that asks me to charge their phones, then stabs me in the back by reporting me for bringing a phone, or the kind that takes advantage of me at every turn, then secretly resents my wealth and calls me a fool with too much money? Or was it my own family, who, without a word about right or wrong, tried to throw me in jail and stop me from taking the college entrance exam?" The students exchanged glances, speechless. In the next classroom, Samantha and Maggie were locked in a brawl. Maggie slapped Samantha across the face. "You little wretch. How dare you use cabbage to wipe your nose? Where's your conscience?" Samantha knocked her to the ground with one swift kick. "Wasn't my conscience devoured by you?" Maggie flailed desperately on the ground, finally managing to tear out a lock of her hair. "How dare you call me a dog?" Samantha flushed with anger. "Even a dog has more conscience than you. Give me the money. Give it back. After all, Maggie wasn't as strong as Samantha." Knocked to the ground in seconds, bruised and battered, she looked at me with pitiful eyes. "I'll report you to the homeroom teacher, the principal. I'll get you a major demerit. I'll have you expelled. You can complain all the way to the central government for all I care." "Maggie, this feud ends only when one of us is dead." The farce finally settled down with the class teacher's mediation. On the day the results came out, Mom and Dad's WeChat step count exceeded 30,000 steps. But they hadn't left the villa all day, watching my flustered parents. I joked, "What if I totally bombed the exam?" Mom pulled me into a hug and said, "Even if you don't do well, it's okay. Our family has a throne waiting for you to inherit." I secretly watched my dad, who was rubbing his hands together like a fly, with my eyes. What if I don't do well on the exam and end up being a failure? Dad puffed out his chest. "Your dad here is healthy, and even if I'm a failure, I'll raise you like a little princess. I've lived 2 lives, but this is the first time I've ever checked my exam results. The moment I typed in the password, 721 points, Tsinghua is a sure thing. The whole family was overjoyed. My heart, which had been anxious for what felt like 2 lifetimes, finally found peace. Our school has a tradition where the homeroom teacher personally hands out the admission letters. It was a stark contrast to the lively and jubilant atmosphere in other classes. Our class is shrouded in gloom. Most classmates didn't take the college entrance exams, and those who did performed poorly. Now they can only come to inquire about repeating the school year. Only Maggie and I achieved satisfactory results in the exams. The moment we met, Maggie flashed a smug smile and said, "I got into Central South University. You know it, right? It's a Project 211, Project 985. And a double first-class university. What about you? Don't tell me you didn't even make it into a first-tier university." The bruises on her face hadn't faded yet, making her triumph seem a little ridiculous. Before I could even open my mouth, the homeroom teacher spoke up. "Our class's top student, the top student in the grade, and also the top student in the entire province, is our classmate Nora. Let's give her a round of applause." The classmates, to spite Maggie over their fresh feud, they didn't even care about our past grudges anymore. Amid thunderous applause, I received my acceptance letter from Tsinghua University. My life has finally broken free from the shadows of the past and begun a new chapter. Maggie, standing nearby, could no longer control her expression. She furiously unmuted herself and said, "If your family wasn't wealthy, if you didn't have access to so many resources, how could you possibly achieve such grades? What I can't stand the most is your nonchalant, condescending attitude. Like you're doing everyone a favor. Every time I accept financial aid from your family, it's an insult to my dignity." My self-righteous attempts to fund and save her were, in her eyes, nothing but charity and humiliation. She smiled, a sense of relief washing over her. "But it's okay, I'm going to college too. I'll have a brilliant future, a wonderful path ahead." Yet, her smile froze and shattered the moment she saw the acceptance letter. North Lawn Street Technical College, teacher. "You must be mistaken, this isn't mine." The teacher looked a bit confused. "I thought you were into abstract art." Maggie completely lost it. "I applied to Central South University." She then turned her accusations towards me. "It has to be you, Nora. You can't stand to see me succeed. Can you? You deliberately set me up, didn't you?" This time, the homeroom teacher finally stopped playing ostrich and firmly shielded me. "The top student, I just checked the system. And you did indeed apply to North Barrier Street Technical College. Check it yourself if you don't believe me." Maggie's hands trembled as she opened her phone, still trying to drag me into this. Nora must have bribed the teacher to change my application on purpose. The crying girl's voice quivered as she spoke. "I was the one who changed it. I just wanted to repeat the year with my favorite classmate. Was that so wrong? 5. Maggie was in disbelief. "How did you even get my login credentials?" The sobbing girl cried until she nearly hyperventilated. "When you were showing off your grades that day, I secretly memorized the password." Maggie was completely deflated. She sued the crying woman, but it didn't change the fact that she had to go to North Barrier Street Technical College. No one knows how she managed to convince her male chauvinist family, and how did they manage to pay for tuition. In the end, with tears in her eyes, she joined the ranks of students retaking their exams. On the first day of school, my parents, grandparents, and maternal grandparents all came along. The school gate and I became the backdrop for their photos. I want to go home and inherit the throne. I have to try my absolute hardest just to make it look effortless, whenever I feel like giving up. I opened the senior year retake group chat. The chat logs Maggie's ongoing battle of wits with the entire class. She was assigned to clean the toilets every day, but her classmates seemed to aim poorly. Feces and urine always ended up smeared on the walls. She was afraid to use her phone because, in just 1 month, 3 of her phones had been confiscated. The moment she took it out, it was instantly spotted, and classmates would report her to the teacher after Samantha's father was sent to prison. She used her money to get into the same class as Maggie. From that day on, her meal tray always had a variety of high-quality proteins. Sometimes it was flies, other times it was caterpillars. What's worse were the maggots. Maggie was miserable, yet powerless to change anything. Another year, another college entrance exam, but Maggie underperformed again due to food poisoning. Only managed to score a measly 250 points. She slithered away in a twisted, shadowy manner, but the surveillance was down. And everyone had a rock-solid alibi. The last time I heard from Maggie, it was a text message from an unknown number. "Nora, please, you have to help me. My mom is trying to marry me off to some 45-year-old limping guy from the next village. You're the only one I can count on. Please, save me." I blocked and deleted the number in one swift motion. Only in this second life have I come to understand. Respect others' destinies, and let go of the savior complex. Embark on a brand new life. Story 2. My elder sister drugged me and delivered me to the bed of the old eunuch who emptied the crown prince's chamber pots, all because she believed in some twisted literary trope, "You're my lowly maid, so it's only fitting you're paired with my husband's personal eunuch." The depraved old eunuch tortured me to death, leaving my corpse mutilated. When I opened my eyes again, I'd once more swallowed the poison, stumbling half-dressed into Voldo's chamber. Who would have thought that 10 months later I'd give birth to a Chilan? In my past life, my elder sister forced a bowl of medicine down my throat and delivered me to Voldo, the crown prince's fixer who handled all the dirty work. I still remember her chillingly innocent smile as she choked me to administer the drug, ordering servants to bind my limbs and carry me to Voldo's bed. "Lynn, you're just a low-born bastard daughter. You should be grateful I found you such a splendid match as the crown princess. I decree your marriage to Voldo the eunuch, a match made in heaven. Countless women would kill for this honor, yet you dare spurn my generosity and dream of escape. Like a dying beast in a trap, I screamed myself hoarse until bloody tears oozed from my sightless eyes. The grotesque sight only fueled Voldo's perverse excitement. Decades of castration and chamberpot duties had warped his soul. Every woman who fell into his clutches met grisly ends, each fate more horrific than the last. He hacked off my limbs while I still breathed. My once lovely face became a pulped mass of flesh under his knife. Salt-laced lashes seared my skin, yet the physical agony paled against the bottomless hatred and despair consuming me. How dare they treat me like this when I'm also Chancellor Stanley's daughter? Una gets to be the pampered young mistress, the crown prince's official consort, while I had to serve as her lowly maid for 10 years. Only to be tortured to death by some damned eunuch. When I bit Voldo, he just laughed and used iron pliers to pull out my teeth one by one, just as Her Highness said, sharp-tongued and fiery. "I like that about you." With blood foaming in my mouth, I alternated between begging for mercy and screaming curses at the beast. "Give up, you belong to me now. Without me, you're as good as dead." Still dreaming of returning to the Chancellor's manor, he burst into laughter as if hearing the world's greatest joke. "Do you really think Stanley gives a damn about you? Even your concubine mother was disposed of by the madam long ago. Stay put with me, you've got nowhere left to run." Voldo's shrill, lewd laughter echoed in my ears, but I could hear it no more. The sensation of life slipping away was so vivid. I'm consumed with hatred. If there's a next life, I'll make every last one of them pay. Voldo's bedchamber was damp and frigid, its 2 windows permanently sealed, the air hung thick with the stench of decay and blood. How many innocent women had met their end in this very room? So they've delivered Lynn from the crown princess entourage. I've had my eye on that pretty little thing for ages. They say she's Chancellor Stanley's bastard daughter, a near-perfect replica of Her Highness. If I can't taste the princess, her sister will make a fine consolation prize. "You insolent fool, do you have a death wish, Jinx?" Una's personal maid snapped. "Dare to lust after Her Highness? Clearly you've grown tired of living. Her Highness detests nothing more than being compared to Lynn. If she hears you say that, you'll be lucky to escape with your skin intact." A chill runs through my heart. To curry favor with my maternal grandfather's family, father allowed Una and her mother to torment us. Mother endured years of abuse that ruined her health, while I served as Una's personal maid for a decade. For mother's sake, I served Una diligently for 10 years, better than any housemaid, so well that she forgot we share the same blood, that I'm her half-sister. Yet all my suffering failed to awaken her conscience. The time it takes for an incense stick to burn a go, she locked me in the woodshed and walked in holding a bowl of medicine. In my past life, I struggled and begged desperately, yet she forced the bitter draught down my throat by the neck. This time around, I offered no resistance, just obediently raised the bowl and drank deeply. The potion reeked of fish and bitterness, yet I didn't so much as flinch. Una looked surprised. "Do you know what this is?" I wiped my mouth. "Whatever it is, if Her Majesty commands me to drink it, I shall obey." She paused momentarily, eyeing me with a mocking gaze, her eyes brimming with malicious delight. "What a loyal little lapdog. I was afraid you'd be foolish enough to offend Eunuch Voldo. But it seems you know which way the wind blows." Her viper-like eyes bore into me, searching for any trace of resentment as she hissed, "This is a potent draught. I'm ordering you to become bedmates with the Crown Prince's eunuch Voldo to secure my favor. Would you dare refuse?" Flames seemed to lick at my insides, my cheeks burning, yet I answered with perfect composure. As her ladyship's maid, Lynn would make a most suitable match for His Highness's chief eunuch, a union blessed by heaven itself. Besides, as a low-born bastard daughter, Lynn should count herself fortunate. Outside the palace walls, she'd never find such an advantageous match. These were her words from our past life. Una burst into laughter. "In our previous life, she had my mother killed in a fit of rage after I ran away, calling it teaching me a lesson. I'm still powerless to oppose her now. To protect mother, I must play along for the time being. This time, I wasn't trussed up and dragged into Voldo's chamber. I walked in on my own 2 feet. So now, I'm free to move about. The Crown Prince hasn't visited Her Highness the Crown Princess in a month. Since you're His Highness's most trusted eunuch, you must look after my mistress's interests from now on." Rest assured, I've slipped something special into His Highness's wine. Once night falls and Her Highness enters the bedchamber, she'll conceive the royal heir and surely regain favor. The imperial astronomers once prophesied that the Stanley household bore a phoenix maiden destined for the throne, compelling the crown prince to wed Yuna. No wonder she's so desperate to use me in courting Voldo. She's trying to win back the prince's affection through carnal means. The drug's effects took hold. My body growing feverish by the moment. While they conversed outside, I'd already located the secret passage beneath the bed with practiced ease. Voldo was actually the one who told me about this. In my past life when I tried to escape, he deliberately showed me this hidden passage after severing my limbs. Then he reveled in my regret and despair, savoring the thrill of crushing others' hopes. I leaped down without hesitation. If I remember correctly, this leads to another place. The Crown Prince's bedchamber. The imperial astronomers only said the Phoenix Maiden would emerge from the Prime Minister's household, not that Yuna was the chosen one. To hell with this divine destiny, my life is mine to command. The drug's effects intensified, my body burning with unbearable fever, my legs kept giving way, so I bit my tongue hard. The sharp pain clawed back just enough clarity to keep me running. Voldo must have noticed my escape by now. If caught, not only would I die, but Mother would pay the price too. Only when my status is high enough to deter them from acting rashly will Mother be safe. Our only recourse now is to fight with our lives on the line. In the final moment before consciousness failed me, I pushed open that door, too. A magnificent bedchamber came into view. My body went limp, collapsing downward. The expected cold, hard impact never came. A pair of strong, burning arms caught me in an embrace. Misty eyes locked directly with mine, my crown princess. Now I remember Voldo drugged the crown prince. With my resemblance to Yuna, his addled mind mistook me for her. A bitter irony welled up inside me. Little did I know, the medicine Yuna prepared for herself would ultimately give me the upper hand. The crown prince, already delirious, mistook me for Yuna. Just as he tried to push me away, I wrapped my arms around his neck, completely under the drug's influence. He pinned me violently onto the bed, as my flimsy garments were torn to shreds. I finally closed my eyes in relief. I know this round, I've won. By the time Yuna arrived, the deed was already done. Your Highness, I've brought pear soup I made myself. It soothes the throat and nourishes the lungs. Would you care to try? Before she could finish, the scattered clothes on the floor stabbed at her heart. The lingering scent in the room forced her to accept the undeniable truth, however unwilling. The bowl slipped from her hands and shattered on the floor, seeing her elaborate attire. I shrank fearfully behind the crown prince. Yuna stared at me in disbelief. How are you here? You're supposed to be. Burning with rage, she lunged at me, but the crown prince caught her wrist. As the crown princess, how could you behave with such vulgarity? A faint sneer escaped my lips. Just as her gaze fell upon me, Yuna's eyes blazed with jealousy, spoiled rotten since childhood. She'd never endured such humiliation and immediately began spewing venom. Your Highness, she's nothing but a low-born bastard, a wretched maid who washed my feet for 10 years. Just like her seductress of a mother, she's now dared to defile you. She deserves public execution as a warning to all. My heart leapt with secret delight. How foolish of Yuna. After a year of marriage, she still doesn't know the crown prince despises senseless slaughter above all else. Just as I expected, his gaze turned icy. How utterly unbecoming. A noble lady, the crown princess no less. Spewing such violent talk, it was merely the wine. I mistook Lin for you in my drunken stupor. Yuna's expression softened momentarily, but she soon grew restless again. Since I've compromised her honor, she shall be given due status. Make it known, Lin is to be named my secondary consort. Yuna cried out in agitation. Your Highness, Lin was originally assigned as Voldo the eunuch's companion. A servant should only be paired with another servant. We are husband and wife, and our servants are likewise properly matched. This is the natural order. The crown prince's face darkened. I quickly shook my head. Your Highness, this humble maid has no connection whatsoever with eunuch Voldo. Not even with 10 heads would I dare taint the royal bloodline. With righteous determination, I knelt upon the ground and struck my forehead violently against the stone steps until blood began to flow. This maid would rather die to prove her innocence. I beg your Highness to restore my sullied honor. The crown prince immediately summoned Voldo to confront me. Having served in the Eastern Palace for decades, Voldo knew exactly how to read the room. He shook his head repeatedly. Your Highness, this humble eunuch knows his place. How could I possibly be involved with Miss Lin? Only Yuna remained oblivious. Spoiled rotten since childhood, she'd grown up getting whatever she wanted. Even her daily conduct toward the crown prince was something I'd taught her. Still seething with resentment, she shouted. Did Lin bribe you to cover for her? I know you two were. Mind your words. Your Highness, this lowly servant wouldn't dare accept any favors. Yuna was cut off mid-sentence. Voldo couldn't let her continue. If his plot to drug the crown prince came to light, he'd lose his head. The crown prince snapped coldly. I will no longer tolerate your petty jealousies. Since you've failed to conduct yourself as a proper crown princess, you shall be confined to your quarters for 15 days to reflect on your misdeeds, he continued. Having taken Lin as my consort, I cannot leave her without proper status. This matter is settled. Voldo, escort consort Yuna to the side palace immediately. Yuna seethed with resentment, yet she knew further protest would only deepen the crown prince's displeasure. She brushed past me, her eyes dripping with venomous hatred. Shameless wretch, just like your whore of a mother born with a harlot's tricks. But this time, I met her gaze without flinching. Now as the crown prince's concubine, I'm no longer that helpless girl at others' mercy. No one would dare make a move against the mother of the crown prince's concubine, not even the chancellor's wife. I watched Yuna, still smug with the privilege of her pregnancy. Your smile won't last much longer. Rumor has it that Yuna's been restless since her confinement, smashing things and tormenting her palace servants all day long, making everyone's life miserable while they're forced to endure it silently. After all, she's the heaven-ordained Phoenix Maiden, the future empress. But this plays right into my hands. Give her enough rope, and she'll hang herself. The real danger isn't her madness, but her sanity. The virtuous queen and the sensible crown prince particularly despise these petty jealousy games. When I was there to guide her, she at least showed some restraint, but now with me gone, if Yuna keeps making scenes, she'll inevitably earn the prince's contempt. But soon enough, her smugness returned. The imperial physician confirmed her pregnancy. Yuna's house arrest was lifted, and lavish gifts flowed into her palace like a stream. She became smug again, even more brazen than before. I know her vindictive nature all too well. She'll surely come after me for revenge. Yuna's audacity wasn't without reason. The current emperor's bloodline hangs by a thread, with only two heirs, the crown prince and the second prince. After a year of marriage where Yuna basked in the crown prince's favor daily, with royal physicians constantly attending to her health, she finally conceived. Since that single night with the crown prince, I've never received another summons to his chambers. As her belly grew day by day, she became certain this child would secure her position as empress. This realization made Yuna bolder. She knew the crown prince disliked me and wouldn't reprimand the mother of his heir on my account. So she began exacting her revenge on me with increasing cruelty. The tides turned overnight in the Eastern Palace. Everyone whispered that the crown princess was truly heaven's chosen phoenix. The future empress throne would be hers by divine right. As for me, just a jester who got lucky, promoted beyond my station yet forever outshone by Yuna. That day, I deliberately dressed in flimsy silks and danced where the crown prince would pass. I've served Yuna for 10 years and know her inside out. Of course I'm aware her spies are everywhere in the Eastern Palace. Just as expected, before the crown prince arrived, Yuna came storming toward me down the path, her pregnant belly leading the charge. With a sharp smack, she struck me hard across the face. You shameless whore, I never realized how brazen you could be, daring to seduce the crown prince right under my nose. She ordered the servants to strip me of my clothes, leaving me shivering in the bitter cold, clad only in thin garments as I knelt on sharp gravel. Meanwhile, Yuna stood imperiously before me, wrapped in fox fur and clutching a hand warmer. Blinded by rage, she ignored all pleas and commanded the servants to gather around while a brutish matron struck my face. See what befalls those who dare seduce the crown prince. I shrank into myself with bowed head, though the ghost of a smirk played at the corners of my lips. I knew Yuna despised nothing more than sycophants, especially when that sycophant was me, as the legitimate daughter. Her upbringing had instilled in her a visceral disgust for such ingratiating tactics. My mother's exceptional musical talent had drawn the first wife's envy, which explained Yuna's outrage at seeing me dance for favor. To others, this might seem trivial, just a wife trying to please her husband. I stared at Yuna's contorted face, my head spinning from the blows, ears ringing. Just as I was about to collapse, an angry shout came from behind me. What the hell are you doing? My eyes closed as I plummeted straight downward. The crown prince rushed forward to catch me. Seeing my thin garments and swollen cheeks, his face darkened instantly. Crown princess, instead of showing remorse, you've grown even more jealous. How utterly disappointing. Regaining her senses, Yuna suddenly understood something and glared at me with bitter resentment, yet my hand drifted to my belly. Your Highness, the child. I'm with child. A secret I've kept from everyone. The Stanley household wields immense power. The entire Eastern Palace is filled with Yuna's spies. Even the royal physician can't be trusted, so I had no choice but to inform the crown prince directly, lest someone plot against me in secret. Yet the crown prince never came to see me, and I rarely caught sight of him in daily life. That's when I devised a brilliant plan, one that would both reveal my pregnancy to the crown prince and make him lose faith in Yuna. Clearly, Yuna eventually saw through my scheme, but by then it was too late. A single night of favor left me with child, sending the crown prince into raptures. I was granted the warm pavilion, showered with endless tributes, even grander than when Yuna first announced her pregnancy. I distributed the gifts among my attendants, and word spread quickly. The court whispered that this concubine showed rare kindness to servants, inevitably drawing comparisons to Yuna. Yuna scoffed upon hearing this. bribing the lowborn with trifles. How provincial. True nobility commands respect for dignity. Only the base resort to such vulgar tactics. My personal maid Sula grew concerned, fearing this might offend Yuna, and suggested they keep a low profile, but I stopped her, even had her parade through the Eastern Palace in the brocaded phoenix feathers I'd bestowed. 3. For I knew even Yuna hadn't received such treasures. Just as expected. Rumors soon spread through the Eastern Palace. Yuna had fallen from favor, and I was poised to take her place. All those who used to fawn over Yuna are now currying favor with me after weighing the situation. Yuna's composure this time surprised me. I only heard she flew into a rage in the palace, beating her servants. Even Jinx got slapped several times. But that's not enough. Though she learned her lesson, human nature is hard to change. With her suspicious and jealous temperament, she'd never allow my unborn child to see the light of day, so I orchestrated an elaborate scheme myself. Every New Year's Eve, the Emperor would lead the entire royal family to Nanshan Temple to pray for favorable weather and bountiful harvests in the coming year. As the crowd finished paying respects and exited the main hall, a sudden chorus of birdsong filled the air, then a flock of brilliantly colored birds took flight. Swirling and circling right above my head with a flurry of wings, the abbot studied my belly and suddenly declared, "Your Majesty, this is an auspicious sign. The child this lady carries is destined for greatness." The crowd gasped in astonishment, especially Yuna, whose eyes burned into me with fiery intensity. "Impossible, you must be playing some trick." The queen paid him no mind, beaming as she took my hand to lead me to her carriage. Passing Yuna, I shot her a triumphant glance, and didn't miss the flash of malice in her eyes, staring at my noticeably swollen belly. I knew Yuna was about to make her move. This time, she wouldn't be foolish enough to do it herself. She'd definitely find someone trustworthy and capable to do it for her. With the Eastern Palace being such a den of snakes, how could she possibly find such a person? But for Yuna, there was actually one perfect candidate. When Voldo came to tell me the Crown Prince wanted to see me, I knew they couldn't hold back any longer. Yuna had dirt on Voldo. He had no choice but to obey her. Besides, he'd served the Crown Prince since birth. No one in the Eastern Palace had more seniority than him. Staring at his sinister, hideous face, a shiver ran down my spine as bone-chilling hatred welled up from the depths of my heart. He led me to the back garden, asked me to wait there for a moment, then turned and left. I surveyed the open garden. Its exposed layout made concealment impossible, so this likely wasn't an ambush. Noticing disturbed earth beside me, I curiously knelt to investigate the freshly turned soil. One glance was all it took to freeze me in place. A voodoo doll pierced with needles was ominously buried there. "What are you doing?" A questioning voice came from behind. Turning around, I saw Yuna approaching with the Crown Prince, wearing a triumphant smirk. "You're done for." She mouthed silently. Everyone's expressions changed. The previous dynasty fell because its emperor became obsessed with witchcraft. The emperors of Xia dynasty all abhorred such dark arts. Those caught practicing them would face caning at minimum, or execution at worst. Yuna stared at the doll and suddenly gasped. This looks exactly like me." The Crown Prince took a closer look. The doll bore an uncanny resemblance to Yuna. "Sister. To think you'd resort to dark magic against me. Your hatred runs deeper than I imagined. No wonder I've been plagued by sleepless nights and heart palpitations. It was your doing all along." Before I could utter a word, she condemned me with venomous accusations, kneeling before the prince to demand justice. Dark magic is a capital offense. Though the Crown Prince was reluctant to believe it, he could only sternly demand, "Consort Yuna, the evidence is irrefutable. Do you plead guilty?" I maintained an innocent expression. "This humble consort is the victim here. What crime could I possibly have committed?" Both men froze in astonishment. I unfolded the note found on the doll and held it up for all to see. There, unmistakably written, were my birth details. Yuna stared at the note in disbelief, murmuring, "Impossible. How could this be?" "Enough." I fixed her with a piercing gaze. "Crown Princess, why did you immediately assume this doll was made in your likeness?" With those rosy lips and pearly teeth, she clearly takes after me more. Ignoring her ashen face, I dropped to my knees without hesitation. "Your Highness, someone means me harm. With the evidence now undeniable, I beg your Highness to grant me justice." The Crown Prince's face darkened with stormy fury, his entire presence radiating impending doom as he ordered everyone to remain in the courtyard while his trusted men conducted the search personally. I saw Yuna's lips turn pale as she stood trembling on the steps, as if awaiting the verdict of fate. A guard came running over, holding an identical doll in his hand. "Your Highness, we've found it." The Crown Prince snatched it and hurled the doll to the ground in fury. The doll shattered into pieces, making Yuna flinch violently. "Where was it found?" "Your Highness, it was discovered in eunuch Voldo's quarters." The crowd erupted in uproar. Voldo was dragged forward. Having already heard the accusations, he threw himself to the ground, weeping and sniveling as he protested his innocence, swearing he bore me no grudge and would never risk execution by cursing me. The crown prince was visibly wavering. Just then, a clear voice rang out from below. "Your Highness, this vile servant once coveted the concubine, only for her to win your Highness's favor." Surely his unrequited love turned to bitter resentment, driving him to practice witchcraft. Voldo stared at Una in disbelief as she stood there with righteous indignation, genuinely appearing to defend my honor. I couldn't suppress a quiet chuckle. What an idiot. She was too busy trying to absolve herself of blame, unaware that a cunning old fox like Voldo surely had dirt on Una. Sure enough, his expression darkened as he spilled everything about Una's involvement like pouring beans from a bamboo tube. With no family to speak of and the death penalty inevitable for cursing royalty, he might as well drag someone down with him. I'd already figured out Una's scheme back at Nanshan Temple. If I could command the beast tamers there to aid me, gathering intel about her meetings and conversations was child's play. Voldo was thrown into the death row, but with so many enemies, he mysteriously died in his cell before execution. Una merely received house arrest in her own palace, spared by the imperial heir she carried, for she finally learned her lesson. No more news of her causing trouble in the Eastern Palace. It seemed she grasped the rules of court survival overnight. Several months later, Una gave birth to a baby boy. I wasn't present for the delivery, but my palace maid told me Una had born a royal grandson. Yet when the child was born, the crown prince showed no joy on his face. The Empress Dowager merely sighed and walked away without a word. I was puzzled. This was the crown prince's firstborn, a royal grandson. Why weren't they overjoyed? Days later, His Majesty bestowed the name Nash upon the imperial heir. People whispered mockingly that the casually chosen name proved His Majesty held little regard for the mother and child. Though released from house arrest, Una shattered vases in her chambers and vented her rage by brutally beating her attendants. She'd endured humiliation believing the imperial heir's birth would end her suffering and restore royal favor, yet to her dismay, even the crown prince's grandson received no affection. Amidst this suffocating atmosphere, my child came into the world. Excruciating pain made my vision flicker and fade, pushing me to the brink of unconsciousness. Drenched in sweat, whether from agony or exhaustion, I mustered my last shred of awareness to push through, summoning every ounce of strength to deliver my baby. The anticipated newborn cry never came. The last thing I saw was the midwife's ashen, horrified face. When I came to, I found myself in a dungeon, shackled at all limbs and utterly exhausted from childbirth. I lay in the foul-smelling, damp cell when several large rats scurried past my legs. Startled, I weakly propped myself up only to see a pair of embroidered boots before me. Una's triumphant face loomed over me, her eyes gleaming with vengeful satisfaction yet shadowed by faint fear and wariness. I looked around, but there was nothing in sight. She sneered, "Still hung up on that monster, probably tossed into the fire by now. You brazen witch, had you not birthed that abomination, I'd never have known what filthy creature you truly are." I was horrified. Whatever it was that came out, that was still my child. I lunged at her, only to be kicked away. "You filthy creature, don't soil my shoes," she sneered cruelly. "Don't worry, you'll soon be reunited with that little bastard you bore." For some reason, the queen's meaningful gaze from that day flashed before my eyes. "I demand to see the crown prince. I must speak with the empress." "How dare you filthy wretches request an audience with her majesty? I am the chosen phoenix maiden, the one true crown princess of the great Xia dynasty." The jailer outside whispered something to Una, who burst into malicious laughter before ordering guards to drag me out and tie me to the platform. The raging flames beneath me, she meant to burn me alive. Una's face twisted with manic glee as she seized the executioner's cleaver, raising it high to sever the rope suspending me herself. "Stop this!" A figure clad in golden robes approached, their commanding voice laced with irrefutable authority and fury. The crowd gasped in shock, dropping to their knees in unison. A flicker of resentment crossed Una's face. The crown prince rushed forward, lowering me down and untying the ropes. "Where's the child?" He remained silent, shielding me in his arms. The emperor and empress approached side by side, followed by imperial guards who rushed forward and pinned Una to the ground. Panicked, she cried, "Your Majesties, I've been wronged. It was this witch who bore the monster. I merely sought to cleanse the royal house, to prevent such abominations from tainting the imperial bloodline." Ignoring her pleas, the royal couple furiously ordered her thrown into the dungeon. I was taken to see the newborn child. Rumor had it he'd been thrown into a brazier, yet miraculously survived when the crown prince fished him out. I'd braced myself to see him horribly disfigured by the flames, but what met my eyes was a crimson beast with horns upon its head. As I recovered from my shock, the crown prince gently guided me to sit on a nearby chair. Through the queen's account, I gradually pieced together the whole story. The founding ancestor of the great Xia kingdom turned out to be an ancient divine beast, the Qilin. The Great Xia's territory held a unique position with spiritual ley lines beneath its soil, coveted by countless aberrant beasts throughout history. The Qilin served as the sacred guardian of these mystical veins. The Qilin's lineage is scarce, making it exceptionally rare to conceive offspring with human women. That's why when he heard of a phoenix maiden in the Stanley household, he wed Yuna without hesitation. The crown prince grasped my hand with visible delight. His excitement barely contained. In a daze, I listened to their explanations while the emperor and empress, satisfied by our loving display, departed contentedly. Before I could gather my wits, the crown prince scooped me up, carefully placing both me and the baby onto the bed. "My beloved, you've endured so much," he murmured tenderly. "I shall cherish you and our child with all my heart, from that day forth." Not only the crown prince but even the emperor and empress publicly affirmed my status, proclaiming my noble standing before all. As for the crown prince, I stared speechlessly at the beaming man who kept piling food onto my plate. Was this really the same crown prince known for shunning women and devoting himself solely to state affairs? The emperor named the young Qilin Qian, a majestic name that left no doubt about the imperial expectations placed upon him. The emperor offered me a reward and asked what I desired. I immediately proposed bringing my mother into the palace to reunite with me, that den of iniquity like the Stanley household. I couldn't bear to leave her there a moment longer. The emperor seemed surprised, but seeing my determination, he granted my request. But before I could rejoice, trouble came knocking. Chancellor Stanley, my father, launched a political offensive in court, accusing the crown prince of favoring concubines over his lawful wife, abandoning his first spouse and mother of the imperial heir in prison without due care. Though born into humble origins, he commanded influence through his stepmother's noble lineage, the backing of the Minister of Personnel, and years of meticulous networking that cultivated numerous protégés. Half the court officials suddenly united in protest, demanding the prince release his wife, with some radicals even calling for his removal as heir apparent. Even the emperor found himself momentarily powerless to resolve the crisis. At the same time, a letter from home arrived. My pupils contracted sharply as I opened it. Inside lay my mother's pair of earrings. A chill ran through my heart. I never imagined Stanley would go to such lengths for Yuna. Then again, I've never been the favored child, as my father. He's never once smiled at me. Perhaps he did love mother once, but his ambition and political career always came first. He made her endure decades of compromise, only to treat it as her duty in the end. And now for Yuna, for the Minister of Personnel's influence, he'd even dare pressure the emperor, using mother's safety to threaten me. Do they really think I'm still that meek little Lin they could push around? I've returned to the Stanley household once more. This time, I return as the crown prince's concubine. Chancellor Stanley thought he had me cornered by threatening my mother's safety to force me to yield my position to Yuna. I stared at the man before me, his face etched with cold indifference and disgust, laced with that smug, calculated contempt. There was a time I'd hoped to earn even the slightest scrap of affection or care from him, but now, all that remained in my heart was disappointment. My final question hung in the air. Do you truly not see me as your own daughter? Chancellor Stanley frowned. What nonsense are you speaking? The blood of the Stanley family flows through your veins. You owe them your everything. I gave a curt nod before turning to leave the study. Before departing, I paid a visit to my mother. Despite all the fine gifts I'd sent her from the palace, she'd grown even thinner. Mother, have you made up your mind? 5. I gazed at her intently, my eyes speaking volumes. This was the man she'd loved devotedly for over 30 years. This house had been her home for half a lifetime. Can you truly bear to let it all go? With a gentle smile, she nodded and took my hand, her face full of maternal tenderness. Go and do what your heart desires. Upon returning to the palace, I presented the emperor with all the evidence of Prime Minister Stanley and the Minister of Personnel forming cliques for personal gain, practicing favoritism, and accepting bribes. My return to the manor was never under duress. I had my own agenda. After enduring humiliation in the Stanley household for over a decade, not a single day passed without me plotting my escape and revenge. I know far more about their secrets than Chancellor Stanley could ever imagine. Yuna still rots in the dungeon, waiting for the Stanley family to rescue her. The entire Stanley family and the Minister of Personnel's household were all sent to prison to keep her company. The Stanley family was purged, and all of Chancellor Stanley's cronies were thoroughly investigated as well. The crown prince born to Yuna remained in the palace, while she and all the other women, except my mother, were enslaved and made government courtesans. I became the sole crown princess. When Qian reached knee height, I found myself pregnant again. The crown prince was overjoyed, showering me with hugs and kisses until my face was damp with his affection. Lin, you're truly my lucky star. Seeing his genuine delight and tenderness, my carefully maintained composure finally melted away. This pregnancy was much easier, maybe because I've gained experience. The delivery went smoothly without much suffering, watching the snow-white baby Cheelin swaddled in blankets, then seeing the pair of starry-eyed admirers, one big, one small, crouching by the bed, I couldn't help but chuckle. Kian, from now on, you've got a little sister. The little one cheered and started running circles around the room. Easy now, don't fall. The imperial couple rushed over upon hearing the news, eager to behold the little princess's grace. The Cheelin clan hasn't welcomed a girl's birth in millennia. Lin, you're truly a blessing upon the great Xia dynasty. The man by the bedside looked even prouder than if he'd been praised himself. Naturally, after all, just look who chose her. I shot him a frosty glance. I still remember exactly why he married me in the first place. He nervously fell silent. Who would have thought the famously stern crown prince would turn into a henpecked husband? By age 8, Kian had already memorized the 4 books and 5 classics. The second prince, who had been guarding the frontier, returned to court. His jaw dropped at the sight of the red and white baby Cheelins, giving me enthusiastic thumbs up. Sister-in-law, you're absolutely amazing. I'm only 2 years younger than the crown prince, yet I don't have a single child. The second prince had a childhood sweetheart for a wife. Though childless after years of marriage, their love remained as strong as ever. Watching their sweet affection, a knot in my heart suddenly came undone. I pulled the second princess consort aside and whispered, maybe it's better not to have children. Childbirth is excruciating. The second princess consort was an adorable round-faced girl who looked completely dumbfounded by my warning. On Kian's engagement day, the ailing former emperor abdicated, the crown prince ascended the throne, and Kian was named the new crown prince. Thus I became the most exalted woman of the great Xia dynasty. Mother remained in the palace with me, spending her days doting on her grandchildren. Gradually, her health improved until she regained her former radiant charm. During the imperial physician's routine pulse check that day, he once again detected the telltale signs of pregnancy. I rolled my eyes so hard I nearly fainted. The second prince watched with glee as the reigning emperor knelt penitently by the bedside. It's my fault, making you go through this pain again. Mother chimed in, the children have grown up, and I've been feeling rather idle lately. Why not have another baby for me to care for? I stood speechless, choking back tears. What could I do? As the Empress of Daxia, living a life beyond ordinary people's dreams, it was only right that I should contribute to this nation, yet for some reason, the memory made the corners of my mouth lift unbidden. Could it be 6, 7, where's my baby? Little did I know, the true Phoenix Maiden wasn't the legitimate daughter Yuna, but the concubine-born Lin. Never could I have imagined the Phoenix Maiden wasn't just a metaphor, she was an actual phoenix in human form. Story 2, Suddenly. The apocalyptic world arrived. I was so lovesick that I took my boyfriend and hid in my big villa. Unexpectedly, the scumbag not only occupied my villa but also secretly brought his mistress in. After being discovered, he threw me and my parents into a horde of zombies. I watched helplessly as my parents were devoured by the zombies. When I opened my eyes again, I was reborn. 1. The time went back to the day when we went on a trip to Thailand. Adam was chatting enthusiastically with his mistress Olivia. I was the one who found the travel agency, and I paid for the tour fees of all 3 of us. My best friend scolded me for being so lovesick and blocked me in a fit of anger, thinking about how he would recklessly use my credit card and enjoy good food and drinks with Olivia after arriving in Thailand. I wished I could slap myself hard at that time. How stupid and lovesick I was back then. Olivia was such a two-faced bitch. I couldn't even tell that she was having an affair with Adam. I was so silly that I even covered the expenses for her to come out and play out of love for Adam. The tour guide was distributing boarding passes. I walked over to him in a few steps and said, I'm not going. I didn't miss the surprise that flashed in Olivia's and Adam's eyes when they heard my words. Of course, there was more excitement on their faces. Adam pretended to be nervous and looked at me, his mouth full of concern. But he must have been overjoyed in his heart. Baby, what's wrong? Why did you suddenly say you're not going? I finally got a vacation. Such an opportunity is so rare. Adam stopped there, and I also pretended to be uncomfortable and replied, Baby, I suddenly don't feel well. I want to go to the hospital for a checkup. At this point, a normal boyfriend should immediately accompany his girlfriend to the hospital. But Adam was really not an ordinary person. He frowned, hinting that I was so ill at such an inconvenient time. What should we do? Olivia also had a hard time getting a vacation. We can't let her go alone, right? And the tour fee is so expensive. It would be a pity not to go. I rolled my eyes in my heart and lost my patience for acting with him. I pretended to be in a difficult situation and gave Adam a deep, affectionate look before saying, Baby, why don't you go and play with Olivia? Let's go next time. But you must come to see me as soon as you come back. Okay, ugh. I was almost nauseated by my own acting. Olivia immediately smiled at me and said, Isabella, go and have a checkup quickly. Don't worry, leave Adam to me. I'll definitely keep an eye on him and won't let him flirt around. I smiled at her gratefully and quickly left under the looks of the group members as if they were looking at an idiot. You two scumbags, just have a good time playing. When you come back, the zombie apocalypse will be waiting for you, this time, without me. I wonder how long you can survive. 2. Time was running out. The zombie virus would break out in 7 days. In my previous life, just after we returned from Thailand, biting incidents occurred everywhere. My parents were worried about me and asked me to come home immediately. I couldn't bear to part with Adam and begged my parents to let him come into our home, who knew that he was an ungrateful wretch. This time, I would never give him a chance to hurt my family. I took a taxi and went straight home. Seeing my parents' lively faces, I couldn't help but hug them tightly and burst into tears. Although my mother didn't approve of my relationship with Adam, she couldn't bear to see me being wronged. She immediately frowned and patted my shoulder, saying, "What's wrong? Weren't you supposed to go out and play? Why did you suddenly come back? And you're crying like this. Who bullied you?" My father felt uncomfortable being hugged by me and just stiffly patted my shoulder. "Don't be afraid, daughter. If he dares to bully you, I'll have someone break his legs right away." I was amused by my father's gangster-like words. I pulled myself together and told them about my past life experiences as if it were a nightmare. I thought my parents wouldn't believe me, but unexpectedly, my father looked at me seriously and said, "Dad believes you. We'll move today." While I was still in a daze, my father had already dialed the phone to ask Sophia, who was out buying groceries, to come back immediately. Then he and my mother got up to pack things. "Dad, where are we going?" My mother smiled at me and said, "Your father and I bought a villa in the Paradise Wellness Center long ago. We were supposed to move in a long time ago, but we were worried about you and didn't move. Everything is available there. We can just move in with our bags. When Sophia comes back, we'll leave Paradise." Was it that paradise located beside a high mountain and a lake, integrating healthcare, leisure, and vacation? Equipped with a nursing home, a medical center, a fire station, a power station, and other complete facilities, it was in a remote location with few people. There were high mountains and flowing water outside the door. It was simply an excellent shelter. Those scumbags and bitches would never find me this time. 3. A quarter of an hour later, Sophia rushed back with a big bag of groceries, looking at Sophia in front of me. I couldn't hold back my tears and threw myself into her arms. Sophia was our nanny. She was alone with no children. She had treated me like her own daughter since I was a child. In my previous life, it was she who discovered Olivia hidden in the storage room by Adam. It was also she who found out about their affair. But before she could tell me, she was killed by Adam and Olivia in the storage room. By the time we found out, it was already too late. Adam had already poisoned the water our family drank, knocked us all out, and finally threw us into the horde of zombies. Sophia gently patted my back and said, "Oh, Isabella, why are you crying? Don't cry. Sophia bought your favorite durian for you." I was amused by Sophia and took the things from her hand, urging her to go and pack her things. Half an hour later, while eating durian, I looked at my father with admiration, as expected of my wealthy father. He directly called 10 large trucks and drove them to the Walmart warehouse. The supermarket manager was already waiting there for us to choose supplies. My father pointed at me, indicating that I should make the decisions. I took a deep breath and started listing the supplies. 100 bags of rice and flour, each weighing 50 kilograms, 500 bags of 10-pack instant noodles, 1,000 bags of compressed biscuits, plus various high-calorie foods like biscuits, chocolates, and candies. Self-heating hot pots, self-heating rice, canned meat, canned fruits, and canned fish filled an entire truck. Dried kelp, dried bamboo shoots, dried bean curd sheets, dried mushrooms, and various dried seafood filled another truck. Toothpaste, toothbrushes, tissues, 4-season clothes, quilts, shoes, warm baby stickers, bedding sets, and other daily necessities, plus power banks, electric kettles, air fryers, and other household appliances. The largest refrigerators and freezers filled a truck. Long-lasting vegetables, fruits, sausages, cured meat, and various seasonings. Cooking oils filled a truck, mineral water and beverages filled a truck. I bought 5 drones. After preparing most of the important items, I handed my father a list and whispered, "Dad, we also need medicines and some weapons for self-defense. It would be best to get 2 diesel generators and stock up on some gas cylinders. Does the villa on the mountain have solar panels and surveillance cameras installed?" My father signaled me to relax. "Leave the rest to me." The villa on the mountain not only has a whole house solar power generation system installed but also has a well dug. My father was full of pride, as if it were a great honor. I looked at the supermarket manager and whispered to my father, "Dad, we're buying so many things, won't it be too conspicuous?" My father waved his hand and smiled. I told him that I want to open a supermarket on the mountain and will first pull some goods from him. I also ordered an anniversary gift box for all employees in the name of the company. Each person will get a bag of 50-kilogram rice, 20-kilogram flour, and a 10-pack of instant noodles. Our company has more than 1,000 employees. Manager Zoe is happy about it. This year's anniversary gift box is the most shabby in previous years. I just hope everyone won't scold me for being stingy. Ha. I couldn't help laughing. I didn't expect my father to be so thoughtful. If the apocalypse really came, these people would surely be grateful to my father. After all the supplies were loaded, my father drove an empty truck himself and asked us to leave first. You and your mother go up the mountain first. Let your mother take you through the back mountain road. There are fewer people there, for, when I saw the 3-meter-high well in front of me and the well in the backyard of the house, I felt extremely safe. The drivers who delivered the goods to us thought we were just stocking up when they saw how remote we lived and didn't think much about it. With the power of money, the drivers helped us unload all the supplies. I knocked on the thick one-way glass on the window and looked at my mother in surprise. Mom, is this bulletproof glass? My mother seemed a bit embarrassed and said, the environment on the mountain is good, but I was worried about wild bears and wild boars, so when we decorated, I asked your father to set it up according to the highest security level. I gave my mother a thumbs up and hugged her tightly. Mom, you're really a treasure of our family. Sitting in the villa that was like a fortress, I comfortably scrolled through my phone. Olivia just updated a Instagram Moments post. In the photo, she was holding Adam's hand with one hand and posing with the other hand raised towards the sky. The caption read, "Here we come, Thailand." Calculating the time, they should have landed in Thailand by now. She really didn't care about me at all. I casually liked her post and then cancelled the supplementary card and a payment method link to someone else's account that I gave to Adam. Let their trip to Thailand be more exciting. Less than half an hour after I cancelled the cards, Adam's calls and Instagram messages kept coming in. I watched him frantically sending messages on the other end of the screen but didn't reply to any of them, just letting him rant helplessly. Before it got dark, my father drove a large truck back. Besides half a truckload of medicines, my father also brought back many vegetable seeds and seedlings. The most surprising thing was that he also brought back 4 hunting rifles and 500 bullets. Now I finally felt completely at ease. 5. In the remaining days, we checked for any omissions and filled the refrigerator with various kinds of meat. We also bought walkie-talkies, solar-powered lanterns, and many outdoor supplies. My father directly transformed the villa's swimming pool into a fish pond and put 100 fish fry in it. Thinking of the high-yielding partridge chickens, I went down the mountain and bought a large silent indoor chicken coop. Looking at the dozens of lively chicks in the chicken coop, my mother and Sophia couldn't stop smiling. Until the last day, we locked the main gate and didn't go out anymore. There were only 5 minutes left until the apocalypse arrived. In my previous life, our family sat in front of the astronomical telescope to watch the stars. After midnight, the sky would be filled with fog, and the zombie virus would suddenly break out. From then on, the sky would always be foggy, and we would never be able to see the stars again. I looked at my father and said seriously, "Dad, what if the apocalypse doesn't come and the dream I had was just a nightmare?" My father laughed loudly and said, "That would be great. Then you can accompany us old couple to live on this mountain for a while, just like taking a holiday." My mother also smiled and said, "Your father's right. Nobody hopes for the apocalypse to come. If it doesn't come, our family can just get together. Since you graduated, you rarely stayed at home for a few days. This time, just consider it as accompanying us." My eyes became moist. Because of my words, my father didn't hesitate to hand over the well-run company to a professional manager. Then he accompanied me to stock up on supplies, supporting me in everything I did. How lucky I was to have such open-minded parents. 6. As soon as 12 o'clock arrived, the fog spread in the sky and instantly covered the moon and stars. Our family nervously went back to the living room and turned on the TV to watch the news. Half an hour later, biting incidents occurred in different places. Our city, City C, was no exception. Coincidentally, the first place where the biting incident occurred in City C was the airport. In my previous life, just after our plane landed, there were biting incidents at the airport. After hurriedly going through the customs, the airport lobby was in chaos. Adam, Olivia, and I were hiding and asking for help at the airport. At 3 o'clock in the morning, Adam's so-called friends wouldn't come to pick him up at all. There wasn't a single car outside to give us a ride. Finally, it was my father who drove for over an hour to pick us up. In the previous life, not long after we sent them home, the zombie virus spread throughout the city. A week after the virus broke out, Adam came to the villa to seek refuge with me because of my lovesickness and naive kindness. My parents let him into the villa. It was my being lovesick and overly kind-hearted that brought disaster to our family. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I was woken up by the ringing of the phone. It was a video call from Adam. As soon as I answered it, his urgent voice came through. "Isabella, Olivia and I are at the airport. Something's happened at the airport. There are people biting others everywhere. Come and pick me up quickly," perhaps afraid that I wouldn't believe him. He deliberately moved the camera around to show me. The airport police were walking in, while the passengers were rushing out. A ground crew member just shouted loudly and was immediately pounced on and bitten by a man from behind. The airport was completely in chaos. Adam had such nerve. He had been enjoying himself in Thailand for a few days and never cared about my life or death. Now he remembered me. He asked me, a girl, to pick him up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Why should I? I replied unhurriedly, baby, I'm still in the hospital. It's too far from the airport. You can take a taxi. If I could get a taxi, I wouldn't be asking you, are you coming or not? If you don't come, I'll break up with you. What an idiot. He was still threatening me with breaking up at a time like this. I pretended to cry and said, woo, baby, please don't leave me. Wait for me at the airport. I'll come right away. After saying that, I hung up the phone and turned it off to go to sleep. I had a good sleep and woke up naturally. I turned on my phone to check the news. As soon as I turned it on, dozens of missed calls and dozens of Instagram messages popped up. Besides Adam's, there were also Olivia's. The last message was from Adam cursing me on Instagram at 5 o'clock in the morning. Bitch, how dare you lie to me? When I find you, I'll make you pay. I didn't expect him to still be alive. I sneered and got out of bed to go downstairs. I casually replied to his message, baby, I'm sorry, I wanted to come to you yesterday, but the doctors and nurses stopped me from leaving. They called my parents, and my parents took me home. Baby, I can't live without you. You must come to the North City Villa to save me. Adam, you must come. Don't let me down. After all, I've left a surprise for you at the villa. 7. After that day, the zombie virus completely broke out, and the news was full of various reports every day. The country called on everyone to stay at home to protect themselves and at the same time, hurry up to study the virus, but I knew that the current peace wouldn't last long. In at most a week, zombies would be all over the city. In my previous life, because the supplies in the villa were limited and there were 2 more mouths to feed, to save food. Adam harmed our family. We only survived for a month. This time, I really wanted to see how long Adam and Olivia could hold on. In the early days of the apocalypse, the internet was still available. I would open the surveillance cameras of the North City Villa every day to see if Adam had come. On the 7th day of the apocalypse, zombies were everywhere, and the social order completely collapsed. Looting, killing, and other atrocities could be seen everywhere. In order to survive, people had long forgotten about many things. On the 10th day of the apocalypse, Adam and Olivia appeared in the garden of the North City Villa. Their clothes were in tatters, and their faces were dirty. It seemed that they hadn't had a good time these days. The North Mountain Villa was close to the city center. Several property management staff and security guards had already turned into zombies and were wandering around nearby. All the villas had their gates closed tightly and the curtains were drawn, making it impossible to tell if there was anyone inside. Adam and Olivia lingered at the door for a while and then had no choice but to call me, hey, baby, I'm at your door, come and open it for me. I pretended to be surprised. Baby, my parents said it's too dangerous outside and won't let me open the door. I'll tell you the password, and you can come in quietly. I told Adam the password and watched him excitedly open the door. As soon as the door opened, a large bucket of stinking pig blood that I had placed on the door frame poured down on him. Accompanied by Olivia's high-pitched scream, Adam stepped on the glass marbles I had scattered on the floor and fell heavily to the ground. Immediately after that, there came his pig-like screams from the surveillance. Oh, by the way, besides the marbles, there were also thousands of thumbtacks I had scattered on the floor. The feeling of being pierced all over by thumbtacks must be really pleasant. Olivia ignored Adam on the ground and kicked him inside before quickly closing the door. The zombies outside were unwilling and scratched at the door. After making sure that they couldn't get in, Olivia helped Adam up and endured the stench to help him remove the thumbtacks from his body. It was worth it that I had made special preparations before leaving the North City Villa. Adam really came, listening to Adam's wails. I happily ate 2 more bowls of rice. After finishing my meal, I quickly went back to my room and continued to watch their performance. It seemed that in less than half an hour, they had ransacked the entire villa. Too bad they were going to be disappointed. Before I left, I had specifically told Sophia to take all the food away, even if we couldn't take it all. I'd rather feed it to the dogs than leave it at home. Sure enough, as soon as I opened the surveillance, I saw that Adam and Olivia had turned the house upside down. They pounded on the sofas and were raging helplessly in the living room. Suddenly, Adam saw the red light flashing on the camera. He stared straight at the camera as if he suddenly realized something. Song Isabella, it's you. You did this on purpose, didn't you, you bitch? You're deliberately messing with me. As he said that, he suddenly burst into tears. Isabella, I was wrong. I shouldn't have gone out to play. I should have accompanied you to the hospital. Isabella, save me. Please save me. I've been hungry for 2 days. Isabella, you must be able to hear me, right? I'm begging you. Tell me where the food is. Okay. Olivia also seemed to suddenly realize what was going on and knelt down to beg with him. Isabella, save us. Please save us. I turned on the voice output function of the camera and said softly, "There is food in the villa, but I don't want to give it to you." Adam was about to curse me but stopped. "What's your condition?" "Oh, this guy's mind works fast. No wonder he could escape from the airport." I sneered and stared at the screen with a smile. "I like talking to smart people. First, slap Olivia 10 times so that I can hear it, and then I'll tell you where the food is." I wanted to see if he was willing to let his mistress suffer. Before Adam could act, Olivia had already taken 2 steps back and roared, "Adam, don't you dare. We don't want Song Isabella's charity. We'll go outside. We'll definitely be able to find food outside." If they could find food outside, they wouldn't have come here. If Adam hadn't been thinking about the food in the photos I showed, he would have forgotten about me long ago. Unfortunately, Olivia still didn't understand Adam well enough. This man didn't love anyone but himself, although Adam was in a terrible state. He still had an advantage in size and strength. He easily grabbed Olivia and started slapping her in the face. Slap, slap, slap. After 10 slaps, Olivia's face was already swollen beyond recognition. Adam eagerly looked at the camera and said, "Isabella, I've done what you asked. Now tell me, where's the food?" Olivia was sobbing uncontrollably, looking at Adam with resentment in her eyes. I chuckled softly. "Do you see the family photo of me and my parents hanging in the living room? Go over there and knock your head on the photo 9 times, and then you can open the mechanism." I said it casually, and Adam was almost hysterical, but for someone who was desperate to survive, this little humiliation was nothing. He quickly walked to the family photo and knocked his head on it. Dong, dong, dong. Then he gritted his teeth and said, "Are you satisfied now?" I looked at the screen, smiling until tears streamed down my face. Back then, I had knocked my head until it was bleeding. But he still refused to let our family go. He heartlessly pushed our family into the horde of zombies. My torture for him had just begun. 9. I satisfiedly said him and was magnanimous. "Do you see the bathroom where my toes are pointing in the photo? Open the ceiling partition in the 6th row and 4th column from left to right, and the food is on it." While Adam was going to get a stool, I happily peeled an apple and ate it slowly. After Adam got the things, sure enough, I heard his furious roar, "Song Isabella, you tricked me. Where are you? I'm going to kill you." Adam was holding a bag of the cheapest morning tea biscuits and a bottle of mineral water, glaring viciously at the camera. I didn't miss the action of him and Olivia swallowing saliva in the high-definition surveillance. These 2 people were used to ordering takeout and never cooked. They never stocked up on food at home. When they fled back to their place from the airport and thought about stocking up on food, the food outside had probably been looted long ago. They must have been hungry for quite a while. I wanted to see if Adam would share the food with Olivia. "Hey, I didn't trick you. Isn't what you're holding in your hand food? Nowadays, you can't even buy food with money. With this bag of biscuits, you can at least hold on for another 3 days. I paused and sighed. "However, there are 2 of you. I don't know how long you can last. If the internet and electricity haven't been cut off in 3 days, I'll come to check on you again. Good luck, baby." Before I cut off the communication, Adam was still smashing things in the living room to vent his anger. I was really looking forward to seeing what kind of situation these 2 would be in 3 days. I set the surveillance to record, threw my phone aside, and left the room, although we had stocked up on a lot of things. No one knew how long the apocalypse would last. We couldn't just sit around and consume our supplies. We also had to exercise and build up our strength. In case of special circumstances, we could have enough energy to escape. Although the paradise was remote, there were still some people around. We tried to keep a low profile and never left our villa at night. We also tried not to turn on the lights to avoid exposing our shadows and revealing the number of people. Yesterday, our family of 4 had already made a detailed work plan. Every morning at 7 o'clock, after having breakfast, 2 people would be responsible for keeping watch, 1 in front and 1 behind, while the other 2 would hoe the ground in the yard. We would rotate every half an hour. Sophia came from a rural area and had rich farming experience. She carefully sorted out the vegetable seeds we bought and taught us to plant many of them. After lunch and a nap in the afternoon, all of us would exercise together. The villa had a separate gym, and we would take turns standing guard and working out. We had been living a very regular and fulfilling life these days. Before I knew it, half a month had passed. When I remembered the North City villa, the power there had already been cut off. Yes, I never intended to give Adam food a second time. I deliberately set a trap for him. I just wanted to give him hope and then make him despair. 10. Taking advantage of the fact that the internet was still available, I quietly opened the surveillance of the North City villa during my lunch break. Since the power was cut off, the cameras had stopped working. I retrieved the surveillance videos from more than 10 days ago and started watching from the moment I cut off the connection that day. In the video, Adam shouted at the camera for a long time, but finally gave up when he realized there was no response. While he was shouting at the camera like crazy, Olivia had quietly reached for the fruit knife on the coffee table. Adam was tightly grasping the bag of biscuits and water, and turned to say something to Olivia. The two of them ransacked the entire villa, jumping up and down. They took apart all the ceiling partitions, the kitchen cabinets, the inverted chandeliers and wall lamps, and some inconspicuous but storage-able decorations. Adam naively thought that I would hide the food in these hidden places. Little did he know that I was just playing with him. After searching fruitlessly, the two of them were exhausted and out of breath. At that time, the water hadn't been cut off yet, and they drank a lot of water from the faucet. Then they sat on the sofa, staring at each other. Olivia pointed at the bag of biscuits in Adam's hand as if she said something. Adam hesitated for a while, then opened the biscuits and gave Olivia a few pieces. He ate a few pieces himself and then put the remaining biscuits in his pocket. The first day passed quietly, however, obviously because they were hungry and there were zombies wandering outside. Both of them tossed and turned all night. On the second day, the two of them got up early and searched the second floor of the villa again, unable to find any food. They became even more irritable and restless. In the video, Adam once looked out of the window, but the number of zombies outside was only increasing, which made him give up the idea of going out. The North City villa was in a villa area, but it was close to a densely populated residential area. Where there were more people, there were more zombies. In my previous life, it was precisely because there were too many zombies around that we couldn't go out to find supplies. I deliberately lured Adam here, apart from that bag of biscuits. I didn't leave him anything else. After searching fruitlessly and being constantly hungry, they didn't have much strength left. After sharing a few more pieces of biscuits, they just lay down. On the third day, the two of them had been looking forward to the camera being turned on since morning, until it got dark and they still hadn't waited for me to come. Adam finally realized that he had been tricked by me. Looking at the few remaining biscuits, the two of them completely broke down. In the video, they were arguing about something, and finally, they started fighting. Olivia was no match for Adam in strength and was knocked down by him. Then she resolutely stabbed Adam with a knife. Adam covered his bleeding wound, his eyes full of disbelief. Olivia snatched the biscuits and water in a few moves and hid in the upstairs bedroom. Unable to fight back and injured, Adam collapsed on the ground, cursing helplessly. I was a bit surprised. I thought Adam was ruthless, but I didn't expect Olivia to be even more ruthless. Adam lost too much blood and had no food. He struggled to crawl towards the door and actually managed to open it with great effort. He was really a ruthless person. If he couldn't survive, he wouldn't let Olivia survive either. The smell of blood in the villa was carried out by the wind, attracting the zombies around. The zombies swarmed into the villa and started feasting on Adam's flesh, until Adam also turned into one of them and wandered around the villa with the other zombies. Olivia was a bit smarter than Adam, but not by much. She wanted to leave the villa to find food, but found that the whole villa was surrounded by zombies. When she tried to escape through the window, she ran into Adam, who had turned into a zombie. After seeing Adam lunging at Olivia with his teeth and claws, I closed the video. It was really satisfying that these two finally got what they deserved. 11. On the 40th day of the apocalypse, the internet was cut off. The independent hydropower station in the Paradise also suddenly stopped working. After the power outage, the villa's power system automatically switched to solar power supply. We guessed that there must be zombies on the mountain. In the early days of the apocalypse, since there was no supply of goods from the foot of the mountain, the supermarket on the mountain had already been looted and destroyed. Many people couldn't stay on the mountain and chose to leave. There were also some people who still had food reserves and were holding on. This situation now should mean that someone on the mountain had turned into a zombie. On the 45th day of the apocalypse, when I was using a drone to patrol, I saw two large trucks driving up the mountain. I immediately felt something was wrong. I manipulated the drone to make a detour and return, and then quickly informed my family. My father took out 2 hunting rifles and bullets and took us to the roof, watching the 2 large trucks getting closer and closer, driving straight towards our villa. Our hearts tightened. My father handed a hunting rifle to my mother and told us to take cover. I was full of questions when I didn't get the gun. Dad, did you give the gun to the wrong person? My father glared at me and whispered, giving you the gun is useless. With your shooting accuracy, it would be a waste of bullets. I looked at my gentle mother and asked, Mom, you know how to shoot? My father proudly looked at me and said, your mother is a sharpshooter at my mother's shooting club. That's where we met in the first place. Hey, it was quite romantic that they met like that. As soon as my mother got the gun, she seemed like a different person. She glared at us and said in a deep voice, stop chatting. They're almost here. She loaded the gun, aimed, and fired in one go, in the blink of an eye. The left front wheel of the truck that was still 20 or 30 meters away from the wall was hit. The truck immediately lost its direction and screeched to a halt with a sudden brake. The truck behind it immediately accelerated and rushed to the bottom of our wall with a full throttle, with the wall blocking it. We couldn't hit the second truck for the time being. With this warning shot, the people in the truck should have known to back off. Who knew that the people at the base of the wall were so reckless that they were preparing to climb over the wall? My father didn't want to fall behind. Without saying a word, he aimed and fired, hitting the man who had just stepped onto the wall right in his left hand. The man howled and fell down. I gave my parents a thumbs up and then picked up the binoculars to look at that man. Surprisingly, he was one of the drivers who had delivered goods for us before. I didn't expect that he had found his way here. 12. As soon as the man fell, a man and a woman quickly got out of the truck and dragged him back in. It seemed that this man had brought his family along. They didn't even say hello and just started climbing over the wall, clearly intending to seize our supplies and house. Seeing that climbing over the wall didn't work, those people actually reversed the truck for a distance and then suddenly accelerated. They actually wanted to directly break through the wall in Russian. My father frowned and quickly said to my mother, "Charlotte, don't hold back with the next shot." My mother looked at me and nodded, then immediately pulled the trigger. Bang! With a gunshot, the right front wheel of the truck that was charging at the wall was blown out by my father. However, the vehicle still unavoidably crashed into the wall, leaving a hole in it. The truck got stuck in the hole in the wall. Just then, another gunshot rang out. The windshield of the truck's cab was pierced by a bullet, and the driver was shot in the forehead and died on the spot. To be honest, I was about to remind my parents not to be too soft-hearted, but I didn't expect them to cooperate so well. The effective range of a hunting rifle is 150 meters. Both trucks were within the shooting range at this time. However, the people in the trucks were not scared by us. They relied on the cover of the wall and the trucks and approached the hole in the wall one by one. They were a group of desperados. They were gambling, betting that we didn't have enough bullets, betting that we wouldn't dare to kill so many people. There were men, women, old people, and even teenagers among those who rushed in. There was a look of desperation and ruthlessness on their faces. My parents were still hesitating, but these people had already quickly approached the villa. I couldn't help but remind them, "Mom, Dad, they're coming in." 13. Looking at my panicked face, my father's face darkened and he said to my mother, "Charlotte, these are desperados. If they catch us, they won't give us a way out. For Isabella's sake, we can't be soft-hearted. Shoot." After saying that, my father took the lead to aim at the person in the front and pulled the trigger. The man was shot in the head and blood spurted everywhere. To be honest, it was really disgusting. The group of people only paused for a moment, and then rushed even faster in the blink of an eye. Some clever ones started walking in an S-shape, trying to dodge the bullets. Bang, bang, bang. After several consecutive gunshots, a large number of people fell down in the yard. Those people were either dead or injured and no longer posed a threat to us. Coming down from the upstairs, Dad's face was solemn, and he couldn't stop sighing. Mom's face was in a daze, and her hands holding the gun were trembling constantly. I and Sophia hugged her to comfort her emotions. We didn't expect that the hunting rifles we prepared to deal with zombies would be used on our fellow humans. Obviously, killing people for the first time had a huge impact on my parents. Neither of them ate much that day, and they were even awakened by nightmares in the middle of the night. What's more terrifying was that the smell of blood from those people in the yard attracted the zombies on the mountain. Those zombies also followed through the hole in the wall and came into the yard. The seriously injured people who hadn't died were immediately devoured by the zombies, and miserable howls echoed one after another. 14. Under the moonlight, the scene of zombies feasting on humans was a huge shock to our senses. I huddled in Sophia's arms, not daring to make a sound. The scene of my family being devoured by zombies in my previous life was like a nightmare that enveloped me. I kept trembling in Sophia's arms, mumbling incoherently. Mom and Dad quickly picked up their guns and ran upstairs. After a series of gunshots, all the zombies were shot in the head. As for those people who hadn't died yet, Mom and Dad also sent them on their way to relieve their pain. After dealing with the zombies, they immediately checked on my situation. But I was trapped in the nightmare and couldn't wake up. I seemed to have gone back to the moment when I was bitten by zombies in my previous life. The bone-deep pain and the deep hatred made my consciousness gradually fade away. I saw myself and my parents gradually turning into zombies. I stubbornly stayed in the villa and refused to leave. My parents had always stayed by my side, without us sharing the food. Adam and Olivia managed to hold on for another half a month, however. Food would eventually run out. When Olivia was off guard, Adam finally turned on her. He cut off one of her hands, tied her up, and was ready to eat her flesh bit by bit. Olivia was terrified by the already crazy Adam and took the opportunity to open the door and let our family in. In the end, the two of them couldn't escape the fate of becoming zombies either, as the nightmare ended with their demise. I finally woke up, looking at my lively parents and Sophia. I was so happy that I burst into tears. Mom, Dad, Sophia, it's so good that we're all still alive. 15. Early the next morning, we burned the bodies of those people and the zombies. We drove the cars in the garage out and blocked the hole in the wall. After that, no one came to harass us anymore. Life returned to normal again, and the first batch of vegetable seeds we planted had sprouted. Looking at those seedlings, we were full of hope for the future. Dad fiddled with the radio every day, hoping to receive some useful information. Unfortunately, all we could hear was the rustling sound. We spent the first New Year after the apocalypse in our paradise villa. On the 261st day of the apocalypse, Dad's radio finally received a broadcast that was looping. Survivors in City C. Survivors in City C. This is the 78512 unit of the People's Government of H Country. We have established a survivor base at No. 6. Middle Street, Greentown Square. The country calls on the survivors in City C to come and support the construction of the base. Let's unite as one and rebuild our homeland together. Because the survivor base was too far away from the paradise, our family decided to stay and defend our home. We firmly believed that good news from the country would come soon. On the 389th day of the apocalypse, there was wonderful news from the radio. The inactivated vaccine for the zombie virus developed by the team of H Country was successfully developed for the first time, and the whole world cheered and celebrated. The haze in the sky would eventually dissipate. Victory belonged to humanity. It was really wonderful.